Okay, let me start. Are you talking, is that Eva? Yeah. So are you talking, Eva, of the recording for the course, you mean, once you're on the course, yeah?
Yes,
Yeah.
because I think we had lecture last Saturday.
Yes, that's on the YouTube channel, because these two are complementary talks, which we have done, like an introduction thing. So they are on the YouTube channel. I will forward it to you. Feel free. But the other talks will be everything will be recorded, and they will be put in a secluded place where, obviously people, who are not part of the course won't have access to.
Okay.
Yeah, but you will have, I mean, the whole, the access to all the material is for life. So it's not like we are going to, say, okay, it has an expiry or anything like that. So, nothing like that. So anyway, welcome, Akshat. Akshat is here.
Hello.
Hello. So, yeah, let's begin with the mantra. I think I've started recording. Let me just do the slideshow from the current slide. Okay. So, let's, if anybody wants to join in with the Ganesh mantra, they are welcome. And Gananam tva ganapatim havamahe kavin kavinamupamashravastamam jyeshtarajam brahmanam brahmanaspata anashranvannuti bisida sadanam Om Ganeshaya Namah. Okay, and now to Lord Shiva. Om Sadashiva Samarambam Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha Hari Om. So, welcome everyone. So today we will begin with, like I said, we continue with the incarnations. This is the chapter 2 of Parāśara, who's like one of the greatest of the sages, considered to be the greatest of the rishis. And he is obviously the giver for those of you, even if not familiar with it. He has given us his monumental work, Brhat Parāśara Hora Shastra. So this is from chapter 2, and he talks about, as we saw last time, that what do the grahas, the planets, do for us? It is not, it is something that they lends their own individuality of the planets, and they come within us, and that's how we are born, and then they manifest in very specific ways, lending their own unique qualities, and where they fall in the chart. So we are quite a unique combination. And as we saw, the word karma and the whole idea and the concept of karma is huge, and it underpins everything in the in all of the Jyotish and all knowledge seeking one. I mean, let's face it, if it wasn't for karma, we would not be suffering. And if it wasn't for our suffering, we wouldn't be here on this planet. And if we wouldn't be here on this planet, then, there was no problem. We would probably be hopefully in better lokas, and we would not need any of the remedials or even Jyotish for that matter, But anyway, coming back, so the word rishi is a very fundamental concept from Vedic, from the Vedas. Now, the rishi literally means a seer, somebody who sees. Now, the idea of seeing is very much connected to all kinds of knowledge. I mean, When they talk of seeing, they talk of chakshu, which is eyes, and Jyotish is often referred to as the eye of the Vedas, you know. And so this word simply means that they are the sage or the divine seer in general. And the great sages of ancient India, in deep states of meditation or communion with the cosmos, and through a lot of spiritual experimentation, etc., they arrived at the fundamental truths of the universe. But that is a kind of like a very modern view of in order for human beings to kind of accept their word. What you have to understand about the all the Vedic scriptures has been passed down from the rishis to us. Now you may well argue that, oh well, you know, it's copyrighted, but their interest was never into sort of like, you know, unlike human beings where we have this massive ego, which we will come to later on when we do the what we are made of, our constitution as human beings, and how you know, what is our on a body level and on a mind level, what we are made of, where the human ego or ahankara plays a massive role. So unlike that, the rishis are absolutely elevated beings, because their purpose to be here is only to impart knowledge. That's it. There's nothing more other than that. And when we say impart knowledge, it is literally they have access to, as you can see in this, this is Dakshinamurti Shiva or Ishana Shiva, where the whole ethos of Lord Narayan or Lord or Sadashiva is literally only to impart knowledge for the betterment of humanity and to bring them out of their problems, and not to clutter up the universe by taking birth again and again. Because Brahma actually, and I'm digressing a little bit, but Brahma actually had, you know, there was a big commotion in because Brahma is associated with the creation, and I will allude to it a little bit much more later. But because there was, earth was getting cluttered and cluttered, and because nobody was able to exit from the planet, you know, there was just, and Brahma's job is to keep creating. And so in order to keep creating, you know, ultimately there has to be some kind of destruction or pralaya, because otherwise the Bhumi Devi, you know, Bhumi Devi is the mother earth, literally. Bhumi is land. And so the mother earth literally was in absolutely forlorn. And so she went to Brahma crying, saying, you are carrying on with your creations, but look at it, I'm feeling burdened, everybody's feeling burdened. So the whole matter escalated all the way to on the higher lokas or the higher worlds. And so there was a like a big commotion. And finally, Brahma realized, went to Lord Shiva, and who's like Dakshinamurti Shiva, who's responsible for, you know, all the knowledge there is, you know, whether you call it spiritual knowledge, material knowledge, any kind of knowledge. He is the giver of everything. And so Brahma was forlorn. He said, understandably, Bhumi Devi is like having a massive problem. You know, the earth is totally burdened, and we are feeling the pressure of it across all the higher worlds, as well as in the talas, which is the worlds below the earth's surface. So, and so finally, essentially the whole of the galaxies were in turbulence and absolute turmoil. So finally, Lord Shiva said, Brahma went to Lord Shiva and said, do something. You know, you're the god of the destruction. You know, you have to figure out a way. So finally, Shiva had to literally meditate and say, I entrust these rishis, and I will impart just through a glance of his, because the rishis were at such elevated state, through a glance they were able to imbibe a lot of his knowledge, which was for the betterment of humanity. And even now, in India, it is a very common it's a very common theme that, you know, we all carry the blood, or the lineage or blood or the DNA, you could call it the DNA whatever word, scientific words you want to use, but we carry it within our blood, mapped to all the rishis. And so these rishis are nothing but like the progenitors of mankind. And in ancient texts, often, they are, each rishi has a gotra or a lineage where we get mapped to. So the entire humanity can be easily mapped to those kind of specific rishis. Okay. So moving further, here we see now, this is where the Jyotish part gets really interesting, because the grahas, as we have seen, or the planets, are like higher manifestations, and we will see more of that as we go along. And the rishis associated with each of these grahas, there are very specific ones. Like for the sun, it is Rishi Kashyap. For Chandra, it is Atri lineage. For Mangal, it's Kratu. Buddha is Pulatsya. So, and some of these are really core rishis, and they are called the Sapta Rishis. And after every massive time or a chunk of time, the Sapta Rishis go through some kind of a modification. I mean, then one gets replaced by another, but essentially the concept remains the same. The core remains the same. So if you have, let's say, a planet, a malefic planet in the 12th house, for example, then it is the rishis who will help you. Nobody else can. It is only through knowledge of that, what that rishi represents, and that particular Puran or the VedPurāṇa, that you are able to come out of some of the curse. If you have, like, your 12th house or the 6th house even packed with 3 malefics or more than 2 malefics, then it is indeed only the rishis who are going to bail you out. Okay. So Shukra is Brigu clan, Shani is Vashishta, Rahu is Daksha, Paitanesha, and Roma Harshana. Now, Roma Harshana, literally, he has his hair standing up. When he heard the Vedas, he was so smitten and so much in love. His hair went like, completely like porcupine, completely went up like that. And then we have Ketu, which is the Jaimini Rishi or Ved Vyasa, and even Lord Narada or Rishi Mahadeva Rishi Narada is also associated with Ketu, as we will see. Now, sometimes different Puranas and carry slight deviations in this, but the core remains essentially the same. Okay. So now the rishis is also what do you call the Sakta Rishis or the 7 Rishis, as it is said in Sanskrit, are also mapped to the 7 sages, which I mentioned earlier. There are variations of that in every epoch. And the Hindu name for that is the Big Dipper, which is the Dhruv Tara. That is, the Sapta Rishis are mapped to they follow the Dhruva Tara, and they belong to that constellation or the Dhruv Nakshatra. And literally it is mapped to the Polaris or the Northern Star or the Big Dipper, as you can see it here. And this is a really interesting image of a colleague of mine who has a beautiful telescope. And he's a big, star watcher. He put this image for me. And basically, if you can see this on the right-hand side, the swastika, you can see and this is like at different times of the seasons, if you map the Big Dipper, the Northern Star, they all have they follow the constellation, and they all form a beautiful swastika, which is a very auspicious and an ancient symbol for amongst Hinduism. So, and it certainly is not, it's not the swastika referred to as in ancient Germany, or not so ancient Germany. So anyway, I deviate. So going back, or rather going forward, we move to, now we all are familiar with Lord Ganesh. Now Ganesh is an extremely powerful deity, and one of the first to be in any kind of puja, havan, or anything. Like I began right now my a whole presentation with Lord Ganesh, one of the great mantras of Lord Ganesh. So the thing is, Lord Ganesh is always the first one. And there are many, you can read about, there are many kinds of Ganesh, Uchishta Ganesh, sort of many kinds. But this particular Ganesh is where he is the scribe to Lord Sage Ved Vyasa, and he literally is translating all of the Vedas. And his deal with Vyas was that as long as you keep narrating, I will keep writing, and I will not stop. And that was their deal. But then Ved Vyasa still needed time to remember things, so he went sometimes really slowly, because Ganesh, as you all may or may not be familiar with, he stands for the energy of Ketu, or the south node of the moon. And whenever there is a south node of the moon is strong, it is Ganesh comes from Gananam, which is in Sanskrit means Ganita, and Ganita means mathematics. So manipulation of numbers, manipulation of numerical abilities, Gananam is Ganesha's forte. That's his absolute strength. The whole world, everything in the nature and universe is to do with mathematics. You're talking of pi, you're talking, everything is present, the Fibonacci series, everything beautiful and which can be manifested can be translated into Ganita or mathematics. And that is the gift from Ganesh. And it's interesting because, here, when I mentioned about the Ketu is also the deity. Ketu's deity is Lord Ganesh, and the whole of the Jaimini astrology is based on encrypted sutras. That is, sutras is nothing but the thread, and the whole thing is encrypted in terms of Vedic mathematics. So there'll be only two words, and the whole, you have to decipher what the Rishi Ved Vyas is telling you, what Jaimini is trying to tell you, just through the numerical, by transferring the sutra into numerical ability, numerical thing. There is a meaning to it, and that is the beauty of Jaimini sutras, and that's where the power of Ketu comes in. And when we talk of Ketu, we indeed talk of Lord Ganesh. Okay, now there was a bit of a turmoil that why should Ganesh be the first one in in terms of first deity, because all the gods, you can see here, all the gods were kind of like wondering why should he be the first one to be worshipped, because anyone who's the first one, he is the most Shubha. Shubha is absolute auspiciousness. So then there was a race that was ensued, and the race was that whoever goes around the world, all the three worlds, the quickest and the fastest will win the race. So all the gods, the Vayu Devta, which is the wind god, Surya, the sun god, also got busy. He forgot his duty, which is to shine. And even the wind god was also contesting in this competition. So all of them kind of forgot whatever they were doing or whatever they were meant to do. And then they started getting ambitious about taking part in the race in order to be the first one to be the most auspicious for the human race, because that is the first go-to deity we do on our planet Earth if we have any problems or obstacles. Now, but fundamental nature of Ganesh is very caring. He's very duty bound. So he raised his elephant trunk and he blew life into the three worlds, lest the poor creatures may die for the want of air to breathe. Because the wind god got super busy, he forgot to provide wind on the planet system, so hence he got a little bit sidetracked, in order to win the race. But it was Ganesh who was, like I said, always caring about everything. And but all Ganesh was what he did was he sat on his little mouse, his pet mouse, which is his vahana, which is his vehicle, and he literally rode around Lord Shiva and Durga 3 times, because those are his parents, and the whole world for him, remember, he's very duty bound. For him, the whole world is centered around his father and his mother. So for him, it was all the 3 worlds combined into one, his parents. And so clearly he emerged as a winner, because he said, and obviously he was the first one to finish the race, while everybody else, the sun was gone, and there was darkness everywhere and things like that. So finally he was clearly declared as the winner and the most auspicious one. And of course, he has to be the most auspicious one. He has to be the most auspicious one, because he was the one who never forgot his duty, never forgot his responsibility towards other people and everybody else. And hence, he is always the first one to be worshipped. And so the symbol of swastika, which we saw earlier in the Dhruv Tara, the Big Dipper, the Dhruv, is often associated with Lord Ganesh. Okay, so that is how the whole story goes. Now, coming back to the incarnations, we did that. Now, this is another one of the very, very fundamental myths of Rahu and Ketu and the churning of the ocean milk. Now, or you may say that this is all a myth, this, that, but every single Purana, there are 18 Purana, there are many, many Upanishads, 108 Upanishads, they all in some way, shape or form absolutely refer to the churning, the Samudra Manthan, which is a churning of the ocean's milk, the ocean's floor bed for the nectar of immortality. Okay, so and even in Angkor Wat, one of the greatest temples ever to Lord Vishnu, and one of the oldest temples for Lord Vishnu, carries extensively the depiction of the Samudra Manthan. You can see here some of the iconography here, pictures have been taken, but the bas reliefs in the temples depicting that there were events such as battles and the churning of the ocean, which is a giant tug of war between 88 demigods, demons. Now, again, here, this is a weak translation. Demigods is a closer translation to asuras. I would not use the word demons, but I've yet put it there because it's kind of it has got blurred. And then 92 devas or gods. Now in Hinduism, the Samudra Manthan underpins everything, as I mentioned before. Okay, so let's move forward. What happens then? So the whole great production began under the auspiciousness of Lord Vishnu. And so all the devas, as you can see, with their beautiful golden headgear and everything on one side, and then there was the asuras on the other, who have got like, a lot of hair and mustache and all that. So they were asuras on the other side, began to churn the ocean for the nectar of immortality. And obviously this was meant for the devas, but they needed the help from the asuras, because the king of asuras, Mahabali or Bali, was getting very, very powerful. And so there was a kind of like a commotion that and Indra, the lord of the devas, got really upset, and he thought, if they start to get even at the rate at which they're going even more powerful, we will lose our everything and they will take over, and literally evil and more evil will set in. Because asuras by nature are quite grabbing, quite greedy, they're kind of quite covetous by nature. And so that should not be happening. And so that's why Lord Vishnu orchestrated this whole Samudra Manthan, or the churning of the Manthan, churning of the ocean. And literally, Mount Meru, one of the greatest, or some say even Mount Mandara, was used as kind of like the main pivot. and then the rope was used, the great celestial serpent Vasuki was used as a rope. So the asuras on one side and the devas on the other, and then the churning began. But at some point, what happened was when the churning began, the whole production started to go little wobbly, because the ground the ocean floor started to give way and it kind of started to dissolve. And hence, there was a problem. So you needed to stabilize the whole process. And that's where the great celestial tortoise, the Kurma Devta, or the Kurma Avatar, or the Kurma, as we shall see later, is associated with Saturn, came into the picture, and he was instrumental to provide the base to make this whole production move forward. Okay. But the first things when that started, so once the production was stable, one of the first things that came out was absolute poison, toxic poison. And everybody got scared. They ran helter and skelter, because obviously they didn't want to inhale all the poison. And so finally, Lord Shiva stepped in and said, I'm going to drink this. And hence he turned blue. So often he's depicted as, in some of the Hindu iconography, he's depicted as someone who's turned completely blue. That's because, and at that time he's called the Neelkantha. And there are a lot of mantras associated with Lord Shiva as the Rupa, Swarupa, that is a form of Neelkantha. One of the great mantras is Hom Neelkanthai Tha, and that is to take away a lot of the poison within us, because we all carry some sort of poisons through our karmas, in some way, shape, or form. So it's only Neelkantha, the form of Lord Shiva or Mahadev, who can take us away from that, because he has had the ability to drink up all the poison. So his throat turned blue. So once that was out of the way, there was a lot of goodies that came out, a lot of great treasures came out. Ayurveda came out, Ayurveda, the great celestial physicians came out. Kamdhenu, the wishful granting cow, came out. You can see the cow here, the great cow with all her milk products and cheese and everything, yogurts and all of that came out, obviously for the betterment of humanity. So they would have better, diet and everything. And so this is also literal as well as figurative. Uttama is a seven-headed horse which was given to the Asuras. Then came the Airava, the great white leader of the elephants, which was taken by Indra, the king of the Devas. Okay. And then came out Moon, which adored Lord Shiva's hair, and finally...
Just have you take a break and let me just discuss about the Samudra Manthan with these people. You take a break and drink some water.
Yeah.
It's
Okay. Carry on.
Okay, you can take a break.
Yeah.
So everybody learned about what does mean that churning of the oceans. So why she's teaching that, the practical implication of this is that where's churning in your chart. Where is the churning in your chart? All you need to do is to check the fourth house from your Rahu and the fourth house from your Ketu. That is the churning in which you have to see a lot of karmic churning in your chart. So here she is trying to tell that the snake Vasuki in a chart, or the snake that in a chart is the axis of Rahu and Ketu. This is something a bit more advanced at the beginner level, but since he is discussing it, then I'm going to tell you right now. And what is happening? So due to this karmic churning that we are experiencing, a lot of our karmas and a lot of desires are coming. Ketu is one extreme of the mind and Rahu is another extreme of the mind. Okay. Ketu is telling the one extreme of the mind, Ketu is telling that, okay, leave everything behind and take salvation and go towards moksha. And Rahu is telling, oh, go for bhoga. Bhoga means that your material life for enjoyment. And these are the two extremes of the life, and we are stuck between them. Is everybody getting my point? Everybody who knows how to check their chart can check the fourth house from their Ketu and the fourth house from their Rahu. And they will see that they will always have some trouble in understanding those houses. Okay. Then this is one of the things that we have to see. Okay. And what's the next point that we are going to see? Have you talked about the Aftara right now, right?
No, not yet. Okay, let's move forward.
Continue.
Now, another thing that emerged was the Parijata, the tree, which is the wish-fulfilling tree. Now, you may think that this is kind of like a really crazy, sort of fictitious, and it's fiction, but it's actually not, because a Parijata tree actually exists in India, and it is very, very revered. In fact, all the nakshatras, which is nothing but all the fixed stars, get mapped specifically to the trees and the shrubs and the flowers. And any remedy, let's say if you have a moon nakshatra problem, like, if your moon is afflicted, it is the tree, the moon nakshatra, that is your moon, in which nakshatra it is in, that if you use the tree of that, then it will give you a lot of benefits. So the Parijata is symbolic as well as literal. And the other meaning of Parijata is the wish-fulfilling tree. So literally there are yogas or combinations in the chart, which we can see if there is a combination of, let's say, roughly speaking, and I'm making it a little bit general here. So if you have like a fourth house Lord with the second house or the 11th house, the combinations of these three can often result in a yoga or a combination which is called the Parijata Yoga, which is a wish-fulfilling yoga. Okay, so but that is general. So all I'm trying to allude is that here, lot of this the Vedic scriptures have great correlation with Jyotish. Okay. And then, of course, emerged Lakshmi, the goddess of wealth, and she chose to marry Lord Vishnu. So here you see the Ashtalakshmi, beautiful. I was at a puja yesterday, Ashtalakshmi puja, because it was Friday, the day of Venus. So that is another amazing gift, the wealth. But there are wealth. One is the actual money, but there is also the wealth. The fundamental wealth is the wealth of knowledge, which helps you to generate wealth. Okay, but anyway, coming back, so now what happens? So with all these goodies coming out, and all these goodies got distributed, all these treasures got distributed among the asuras as well as the devas, but they were aware that they got the asuras to sit in one row, and then they got the devas to sit in one row when the nectar of immortality started to come out. But what happened was, Lord Vishnu thought, let me create a little bit of a distraction for all of them, because he had full faith in the devas. So he dressed up as a beautiful nymph, like a really beautiful woman called Mohini. And so he sort of danced and entertained all around the asuras as well as the devas. But the devas, you see, were very focused on the production. They were very dedicated to Lord Vishnu. So they saw the feet and they recognized the feet of Mohini, and they said, wow, this is our Lord, So they were not taken in by the disguise in the form of Mohini, while the asuras were completely taken in by them. Now, what happened at that point of time was Swarbhanu, one of the asuras, went and disguised himself and sat in the rows where all the devas were sitting. And so, because he suspected something was off. And so eventually, when all the distribution for the nectar of immortality came, and Swarbhanu he was sitting between the sun and the moon. And so when his turn came, sun and the moon suspected something was not quite right about Swarbhanu. And then they went and complained to Lord Vishnu, who in an instant transformed and took his discus, as you can see here, his discus, and he cut the head of Swarbhanu. And so the whole of the birth of Rahu, where he had quaffed a little bit of that nectar of immortality. And so that is how the birth of Rahu and Ketu came, because they were like literally cut in half. And so the south node of the moon is often that part where we are completely headless, we have no clue, and we are just like a complete blind follower. While the Rahu part, which is the head part, the head of the dragon, is literally where we are constantly over-egging and overthinking all situations. And so moving forward, the myth of Rahu and Ketu are not actually planets of physical substance. They are areas churned up energy and pregnant with mysticism and great significance. And they remained in the skies, permanent reminder of all the gods and the darker side of life and what we have to do in our pursuit for immortality or moksha. So this is where the fundamental churning happens in ourselves. If it wasn't for Rahu, we would not even be born. So as you can imagine, our biggest challenge and the whole Jyotish, our pursuit for learning is nothing but Rahu and the other two malefics combined. If it wasn't for them, if it wasn't for our fears and our desires and our unmet desires, which result in extreme anger, extreme frustration, and a lot of hatred and a lot of, as they call it, clash and anger, hatred and rage. If it wasn't for that, we would not all be here, So here we have the fears, the dark emotions, transformations, manipulations, all happens under Rahu. And while Ketu is all the non-entity, is a great spiritual mystic, but this is not easy to come by in normal life. Yeah, we can well say that we'll go and sit on the top of a mountain and do nothing, but that is not possible. So we have to walk. Remember, it's an axis. We have to walk with both the ends. Absolutely. So
yes, that is absolutely true, because both of the planets are signifying our minds only, because these are not physical planets. These are shadowy planets. That means that they don't present in actual reality. They are only present inside our mind.
yeah.
And these are nothing but our concepts of mind. I want to give someone's practical example. How many guys have you kids right now? How many guys are married and have kids over here? Okay. So I think Eva has this. Okay. And I can't see anybody else. See, check your children's chart and where the Rahu Ketu is present. If by chance Rahu and Ketu axis is falling into Lagna, then the parents are always running here and there for the kid. Okay, this is something very speculative that you can check. If someone is lucky, then they are born with a child who has Rahu or Ketu axis, in the Lagna, and they know that now it's time for them to churn up their karmas and do a lot for the child. These are small tips, because you're going to learn through the concept of these mythological myths and all these Puranas, all the stories, because it's nothing but to say, when we churn our mind, when we churn our internal emotions, what we can produce? We can produce poison also. We can produce all sorts of wealth also, and we can produce all sorts of knowledge. That is why Lakshmi also came out. All we need to do is we have to churn and work hard to produce Lakshmi. Lakshmi is not the goddess of wealth. It is the goddess of satisfaction. When we churn ourselves and we find and we truly get in which we are truly satisfied, that is our Lakshmi. That is why there are 8 different types of Lakshmi. For someone who is a mother, her wealth is her son. For a businessman, it's his business. That is the concept of Lakshmi that we are going to teach in the future. Okay, so that is how. So we all are going through a journey, and what we are experiencing this thing. This is through which we are experiencing our different sets of minds, and we are experiencing life differently. All people, all humans are biologically same. They have the same chemistry inside the mind, but we are experiencing everything in a different way because of our combinations of moon and Rahu and Ketu and other planets. We are all churning in a different way. So does anybody have any questions about Rahu and Ketu? I think so that nobody has any.
Okay, now
So many.
another
Okay,
thing.
so many, but okay.
What?
Now remember one thing, Rahu, the Asuras or the demons have taken the head of the snake and he has multiple heads. And what is Rahu is telling that Rahu, the Asuras are telling that if you go for multiple directions, you will not be able to achieve anything. And the Suras, the Devatas, the gods were on the side of the tail. So what is tail? There is only one tail, but the serpent has too many heads. It means when you have unity of objective, when you have only one objective and you work through it, then you will be able to achieve that. Second thing they are trying to say that, okay, they recognize the feet of the Vishnu. And what does mean? Vishnu is always in the 12th house. Vishnu is, you can only access to Vishnu when you are ready to give. People who do not give willingly life, they may experience it as a loss because 12th house is also the house of loss. But from this point of view, this is telling me that they recognize as the feet and they say, oh, it is Lord Vishnu. Vishnu is always sitting in the 12th house. Okay. And what is Vishnu? Vishnu is all about caring. He is the sustainer. He sustains the life. And how do you sustain a life? Because you're giving something to some other. As a person, as a parent, you're giving to your children and your children will give to their children. That is how this whole world is sustaining because we are always giving something to another. It's not, Vishnu is not about receiving anything. He's more about giving what you can give.
So that is also the energy of Ketu. And remember that Ketu's energy, remember we saw earlier that one of the rishis associated with Ketu is Rishi Narad as well, the Deva Rishi Narad. And Deva Rishi Narad, or popularly known as Narad Muni, has a very close relationship with Lord Vishnu. And that is all to do with the 12th house. By the time we come to the 11th house, we have got beaten up so much. And we may well say that, hey, it is the house of, gains and everything. Of course, we have gained a guru, of course. But now we are ready to give up everything when we enter the 12th house. And that is the
11th
house
house also makes you gain another life. It means that you're caught in the cycle of again, because you see the natural 11th house is Aquarius.
Yes.
It is the sign of Saturn and Ketu. What you're gaining, you're also gaining one more lifetime of suffering, that Rahu is getting hold of you again. And so, oh, you have gained another year of another life of bhoga or misery or suffering.
Yeah. So essentially, Rahu, before reaching Ketu, you have to deal with Rahu. You have to deal and overcome some of the Kama Bhavas. That is Kama, which began in the 3rd house, the Mithuna Bhava, which is to do with our desires, fundamental, our deep desires that we have kind of concocted in our mind. And then finally, we come to the journey of the 11th house from the 7th house, the trines, the Kama trines, or the trines to the air trines, as they call it. And finally, when we come to the 11th house, we need to be able to listen to the guru, actually be there for the guru and give up some of the stuff, either resolve the karma or just give it up. Otherwise, Rahu will say, okay, another lifetime of suffering, come back again. Because remember, Rahu is the Karaka for your life, because all he's interested in is more desires. Hey, let's get them back on earth, another life. That's all his purpose is, So, but ultimately, the Ketu's idea is, because it is a natural home of Scorpio, it is extremely at home in Scorpio, or as they call it in Sanskrit, Swakshetra, the natural house, which is the occult and mysticism, astrology. What is the purpose of all this? It is ultimately It's transformation. We are meant to transform ourselves so that we are willing to go on the path alone to do moksha, to pursue the idea of liberation. And so there is no better transformation than the 8th house, and ultimately leading to the trine house, which is the house of Pisces, which is Ketu's Mool Trikona. That's his job. You know, the job of Ketu, or the south node of the moon, is all about moksha. So if you want to pursue, like have a consistent pursuit where you say, okay, I'm going to try burning as much karmas as possible, that is fine, and go through some of the prarabdha karma, that is also fine, because you're forced to do that, remember, as we saw in our last talk. But ultimately, we can then finally make space for little by little, by studying through pursuit of knowledge and through with the help of a guru or various other modes, you know, we end up following Ketu, which is, you know, the ultimate path for giving up our desires and things like that. Okay. That's why hence Ketu is also called the Mokshakaraka, which is, it's the giver of emancipation. Okay. Now we come to Shani. Remember what Shani did? He was a great celestial tortoise who made this whole Samudra Manthan stable. That is a whole churning of the ocean. He made the whole production happen. And if it wasn't for Shani, there would be no stability in our lives. And of course, he's, you know, the Karaka for the death and suffering and, you know, fear and intrigue. But I think fear is also associated with Rahu. Rahu is also trickery. He's like the eternal trickster. He will trick you. He will pull wool over your eyes. He will lie. He will cheat. While Shani is more to do with like deep suffering, and he'll generate a lot of fear in you. But the fear is more to do with like, hey, my disease, the fear of death, the fear of disease, and all of that. And that is why he's called the Ayush Karaka, that is the significator of longevity. In any calculations in Jyotish, whether it's Jaimini or Parāśara, there are 2-3 chapters devoted only to the whole calculations of longevity. And there, Shani, Saturn, and Moon, we cannot consider it without Saturn, Moon, our lagna, our, you know, our intelligence, as well as the 10th house or the 10th lord. Because you see, the 10th lord or the 10th house in the natural scheme of things is the house of our karma. It's the house of Shani, it's the house of Saturn, because Capricorn is the 10th house. Hence, any book you take on at least I'm talking of Jyotish here, Saturn plays a huge role in terms of longevity, and indeed he becomes a significator for longevity calculations. Okay. So now we come to Mangal. That's the other malefic. So in our pantheon of malefics, we've covered the 3: Saturn, Rahu, and Ketu. And Ketu, I would say, is not really a malefic unless you want to be like, you know, super rich, very covetous. Then Ketu is going to will give you a lot of problems. If you're entering your Ketu Dasha, it will give you a lot of problems. But if you're willing to work with Ketu, then it is absolutely brilliant, because there is no better friend than Ketu when it comes to working with knowledge, spiritual knowledge, learning, Jyotish, all the 8th house stuff, all the 12th house stuff. It loves it, because that's where it is completely at home in. And here, Mars, he is also the Bhumi Putra. In one of the, you know, he's often referred to as the Bhumi Putra. Bhumi Putra is somebody who is like the Lord of, or rather the son of the earth, and Bhumi, or son of the land, literally translated. So that literally means that Mars has a big say whether we exit the planet or not, and when. You know, that is also a very deep significator of, you know, whether we can sustain life. And Mars has a very strong directional strength in the 10th house, where it is the southern direction. And so the death comes from Yamaraj, or the god of death, whom Mars is the overseer of, comes from the southern direction, and hence he's our key figure for, land and our life on earth. So we need all the fire of Mars to keep us alive. Of course, the source is the sun, but it is a Mars that gives us the fire to keep us alive, for our earthly existence. And so that is very, very vital. Okay. So, and this is the Narasimha avatar for Mangal, or another name for Mars. Okay. Now, what you need to understand is the nature of the universe here is to do, the fundamental nature is a Brahmand, but Brahman is different. Brahman is that eternal Narayan, or the Parabrahman, or Vasudeva, or Sadashiva, which I've already alluded to in the last. You could even call it the source. Doesn't matter. Don't use this iconology. Don't use these terms. Use your terms. The one source, whatever you can call it. But that they all fall under this category. And so, but that is distinctively different from Brahman, which means the entire universe and beyond this universe, which literally means expands. Brahma is to expand, and under is the egg of the cosmic egg from which we come from. So the Brahman is that unchanging reality. That is, the Parabrahman is the unchanging reality, which really cannot be defined, but it is within us. Okay, that means we have access to it. We are one of the sparks which are created from the great Brahman. So of course we have to have that quality within us. We have to have that ability to be able to access it. And it is often said that the minute we are able to access the Brahman, or understand our own nature, which is nothing but we are a spark of the Parabrahman, then we get moksha. That is, we are so much in tune with Sadashiva or Vasudeva that we are literally able to not come back on earth at all, and that is our gift. That is our pursuit ultimately. Okay. So, so here you can see that Lord Brahma, now this is distinctively different. Lord Brahma is the holder of the Vedas, and he has 4 heads standing for the 4 Vedas, and he is a creator, ultimate cosmic creator, and he is connected to Lord Parabrahma, or Narayana, or Vishnu, or Mahavishnu, whatever you can call, and through the navel. So he holds the key literally to the creation process. Okay. So let's see further how it all happens. Here, the concept of Parashakti comes in. Now, Parashakti is nothing but, as you would have guessed, the whole creation is come through the agency of feminine, the great Shakti, or the Parashakti. Now, when we talk of the Parashakti, it is nothing but the Sadashiva turns into the Param Shiva, literally bifurcates into 2. One side of his turns into the feminine counterpart, and the other, the Purusha or Prakriti, which is the correct terminology for. So the Purusha is nothing but the male side of Sadashiva, and the Prakriti is nothing but the feminine side who comes to manifest on earth. And here we can see then it turns into the whole of absolute consciousness, or Narayana or Param Shiva goes into the universe to become, Brahma, as we'll see in the next slide. Here, Lord Brahma, whose consort is nothing but the Vak Shakti, or Saraswati. We are all familiar with Saraswati. She's the giver of the Gayatri mantra, or the Gayatri, and the Vak Shakti. Vak Shakti is our ability to speak, to learn. That is all under the purview of Saraswati. And of course, Lord Vishnu, who maintains the entire universe, his consort or his wife is Mahalakshmi or goddess Lakshmi or Ashtalakshmi. So whatever wealth you want, whatever abundance you want. Now, when I talk of abundance, I do not mean like, oh, abundance, like, you know, oh, I need like $1 million in the bank. Not that kind of abundance. Abundance is much more a richer concept than just money in the bank. Abundance is about this inherent feeling where you feel you can create and you have the power, you know, you feel fulfilled and rich in a deep way. You know, it's the abundance which is coming from inside. You know, it's not as in, because once you have that ability and the power to feel abundance within, you can recreate it outside. Okay, and that is a purview of Vishnu and Lakshmi. And then finally we come to the Rudra Shiva, or the goddess, the Maheshwara, which is Lord Shiva, the who has a power to destruct. You know, one of his great forms is Nataraj, where he goes on his tandav and he goes really angry, and he's on his way to destroying all the worlds. And that is the form of Lord Shiva, the particular form of Lord Shiva. And his consort is, of course, Parvati, or you can call her Durga. And often you have the Durga puja, you know, during when the Durga's, the 9 nights of Durga is often associated with the waxing phase of the moon. And while the Mahavidyas comes under the purview, Mahavidyas are nothing but the great knowledge, you know, coming from the Shakti or the Parashakti. And that is, so if you have a debilitated planet, it is the Mahavidyas that will help you to overcome some of the debility. You know, maybe there is no cancellation of debility in your chart, and it is definitely the Mahavidyas that you have to pursue. And that all comes under the Dasha Mahavidyas, which comes under the purview of Kali or Durga or Adi Shakti or Adi Parashakti. So these are different Puranas, have different names, but they are essentially referring to a similar concept. Okay, so this is kind of like the Trimurti, or the roughly the way the universe comes about through these 3 fundamental concepts. Of course, they are similar to you know, even the Christian one, the trilogy of the Christian in Christianity. So anyway, so here it is. As you can see here, the Holy Trinity, and Parvati is to do with Shiva, and Vishnu is Mahalakshmi, and Saraswati is wisdom, learning, music, and the consort of Brahma. Often Brahma and Saraswati are worshipped, you know, when you think of an image or something of young, very youthful, you know, very under 16, that kind of energy it has. While Lakshmi and Vishnu is a lot more sort of adult energy, because Lakshmi often depicts someone like a middle-aged woman who's very, very sort of youthful, not youthful as in like under 16, but like young, you know, and but not a mature lady. Okay, an adult woman with children and things like that. While finally we come to the Shiva and the Durga, which is, or Kali, which is a very fierce form of Durga, which is an elderly woman, you know, the old person, the older woman, as they call it, the older woman, which has got really bad rep nowadays. But, you know, but there is a lot of power in that. A lot of Kali has a very, very strong thing. Any Shani problems, it is a Kali is the first go-to, you know, absolutely. So that is a big part of the whole trilogy. Okay, the various Shaktis and the knowledge base and the mantras that they provide through that. Yeah, so okay, Akshat, you want to say something?
I think you have covered up everything beautifully.
Okay,
so because
now
they need to understand the concept of the 3 Shaktis. What is Saraswati, what is Lakshmi, and what is Parvati?
Yeah,
Saraswati is a young girl who's been started studying and has not started her menstrual cycle. The moment a girl starts her menstrual cycle, she turns into Lakshmi.
Yeah.
And the moment the menopause happens, she is into Parvati. So that is how we are seeing what phase a person is in. The same goes for men also.
Yeah.
When they are like Vishnu, then they become Shiva, then they become Rudra.
Yeah.
Okay.
So anyway, then like I said, the Prakriti is the material. By the time the Parashakti comes down in order for her to manifest on
Yes.
this earth, she comes through. How would she come? How are we just created out of the blue? No, we are consciousness, but that
Yes.
divine consciousness has to come about in the material. So you're trying to push this amazing divine ether element into a material existence. So when somebody says we are, as human beings, we are spiritual people or divine conscious people having a material experience, that is indeed true when it comes to the Vedic knowledge, absolutely 100%, because we literally are, we are the spark of Mahavishnu or Narayana. And so the great cosmic intelligence is accessible within us. And we are made from the three gunas or the three different attitudes, sattva, rajas, and tamas guna. And then we come, and the interplay of the gunas and the tattvas, which is like the akash, is the ether element, vayu is the air element, agni is the fire element, jala is the water, and the prithvi is the earth element. So this universe, with the interplay of the five great elements and the cosmic ego or ahamkara and the interplay of the three gunas, brings about the whole existence for us. That is the indriyas, it's like akin to the consciousness, which is bright white light coming straight from Sadashiva. You can see here the whole Parashakti and Sadashiva. And from there, it splits into the various colors, giving us our chakras, giving us our energy vortexes within the body through the agency of the five great elements, the cosmic ego or ahamkara, and which is nothing also along with the intelligence or the buddhi, the cosmic intelligence. So all of that, so we are a combination of many, many factors, okay? And this is a rough chart, we are not doing a chakras thing, but I just wanted to show you this concept will be in Jyotish. How it is interpreted is one of the key things that we learn in Jyotish, is that who is your soul planet? Who is your Atmakaraka? Who is all the planets? If we consider barring Ketu, there are 8 of them. And each of the planet in our chart carries a certain karma. The house they land, the house they rule, the ownership, all of that. And what aspect it makes, all of that is mapped to one of these colors that comes out. And these colors carry our karma. Okay. And it's like the 8-petal lotus of Lord Vishnu. So literally it is, all these colors are akin to the 8-petal lotus, thus carrying our karmas. And that falls in our lap. And so that is what we have to decipher. What are these 8 different karmas? And of course, we are not considering Ketu, because remember, Ketu is our way out. It is our ticket out of this solar system. Okay. So when I say Ketu is a moksha karaka, what I mean is that means you will not be born again on this planet or in the lower worlds. You will get moksha or liberation. That means you will be able to go not just towards the heavens, which is the Vaikuntha or the Vishnu Loka, I think. Akshat, correct me if I'm wrong. It's Vaikuntha, right? So it is not even Vaikuntha. In India, often somebody passes away, we always say, oh, unka Swargvas ho gaya. Swargvas in India, literally,
on a very lower level, actually.
Yeah, Swargvas actually means they've gone to the heavens. But here, when we talk of Ketu as a mokshakaraka, we are not talking of the heavens. We are talking ultimately of the Satya Loka, where we are one with Sadashiva, where we never want to come back to any of these worlds to suffer. Okay. because every world, the 7 worlds above us, all carry some karma or the other. You know, even the devas, even Lord Brahma has his own karma of creation. You can't get away. Even he can't get away. He can't give up his creation. He can't tell his Prajapatis, who are his delegates to create the worlds and create human beings, to say, okay, let's stop the production process and I'm going to now switch roles with Lord Vishnu. He can't do that because that is his karma, right? So similarly, we ultimately, our job is to overcome all these colors and move into the divine consciousness, light of great consciousness, which is given by Ketu. Okay, so now on Tattva, Brhat, Parāśara, Hora, Shastra, one of the 3rd chapters, one verse in the 3rd chapter, it says, the fire, Agni, earth, Bhumi, Bhumi is earth, fire is Agni, ether is Nabha. He associates Nabha with ether, and water element with Toya, airy with Vayava, are governed by the grahas in the order of Mangal. So of course, fire is Agni, earth is, Buddha is associated, Buddha is Mercury associated with the earth element, which is very different to the Western astrological concept. And Brihaspati is associated, Brihaspati or Jupiter is associated with the divine ether element. And Venus is associated with the water element, and Shani or Saturn is associated with the air element. And these are all governed by the planets. The 5 great tattvas or elements are governed by these core 5 planets. Okay. Now, again, we can map into the chakras. I don't want to spend too much time here, you know, because it is complicated, but we are all familiar with the chakra thing. I pinched it from one of the, internet, great search internet, simple stuff. And each of these chakras are, of course, associated ultimately with, there are worlds that get mapped in, there are the tattvas or the elements that get mapped in. So the Mooldhara is where the residence of the Kundalini Shakti is. The Kundalini, which is like the Ketu-like energy, which the spine is akin to the Ketu energy. Okay, the Ketu is nothing but the great serpent. And so the Mooldhara chakra, at the Mooldhara chakra, it is the residence of Lord Ganesh, which is the Prithvi Tattva, that is the earth element, which is given by Mercury, which is the Lord is overseas, is Ganesh and associated with Mercury. The Swadhisthana is nothing but the Jala Tattva, which is under the purview of Durga and of course ruled by Venus. And Manipura is like the fire element within us, which is here, as you can see, and that is associated with Mars, as we saw earlier. Then Anahata, which is, I don't want to say heart chakra, but it is distinctively different. The heart chakra is called the Rit chakra, while Anahata is sort of in slightly away from there, and that is associated with Vishnu energy, and it is to do with the air element, which is Saturn, and the throat one is Vishuddhi chakra, which is Jupiter and the ether element. Then so on and so forth, you can go, but there are many variations of this, but this is kind of like the basic one. Okay, so here I have put together a simple table, which is each of the elements, each of our Gyanendriyas, that is the 5 sense organs, are mapped to the 5 elements, which in turn get mapped to the actions that we do, that is like through the nose, through the tongue, and all of these get associated with what element. Okay, so for example, and the planets also associated with it. So fire element is of course Sun and Mars, the air element is Saturn and Rahu, the ether element is Jupiter, no doubt, the water element is Moon and Venus, and Mercury is the earth element. So any problems, any afflictions to, let's say, Moon or Venus, it is a Shakti that, kind of appeasing the Shakti or Durga that will help you overcome some of the problems, or Gauri even. So there are many, many variations. We'll come to the Devatas in a bit. So for example, any affliction to the earth element, if you're not able to, there are too many obstacles, too many problems with the job, you're suited for the job, but then it's taken away and given to somebody else. Maybe the Mercury is with Rahu and all of that problems. Then it is the Ganesh that is creating, which will help you out. Those problems that are being created, those obstacles, the Badhak that is being created, it is only Ganesh that will help you out to take you out of that. Okay. And Mercury, of course, rules the smell. So if you have, let's say, malefic in the 12th house, in your Rashi chart or something like that, be careful. Okay. Be conscious, because at some point your sense of smell may kind of run into a bit of a problem there. Okay. Okay. Now, this is a very fun, like I said, the 5 great elements have a great, it translates into our everyday material existence by offerings to the devas. This is the puja or the havan or the homam that we often do at various ceremonies, at various times, whenever the moon is in a certain nakshatra. Let's say the moon is, you have your birthday tithi. That means your sun and moon angle between your sun and moon is, let's say, 5 degrees. 5 degrees will be a complete conjunction, which is, let's say, Amavasya. So when the sun, so every birthday, when the sun and the moon are in similar, at the same point, at least in terms of the angle, then that particular nakshatra that it happens in, then that's when you have your solar lunar return birthday. So what do you do then? You can do like a Panchadevta puja. You can do a homam, that is a havan ceremony. And that is very, very helpful. But what do you do then? You just don't light the fire. You make offerings. Anytime you want to have some kind of respite from some kind of problems, you offer that particular substance to that particular devata. So for example, Prithvi is ruled by Buddha, which is Mercury, which rules the sense of smell, and the nose, that is the sense organ, is the nose that is involved in it, Gyanendriya. And Gandha is nothing but something which smells nice, a sense or something like a floral water, no, not floral water, something oil, nice smelling oils and perfumes, that would come under the purview of the Prithvi, or to appease Buddha, and you offer it to Lord Ganesh. And that is how you have to go about it. So we always, here on the right hand side, you can see the Panchadevta pictures. We often Naivedya, which is food, which is to do with Jala Tattva, which is water element, which is, we give it to Shukra, in order to Venus, in order to purify us. And after that, then we can have some of the sweets or some of the, whatever it is, you can even give cake, but of course, no non-vegetarian and no egg, so please make a note of that. So unless, I don't know, some tantrics do it, but, we are not teaching tantra here. So Akshat, do you want to say something? Anyone wants to say something?
No. See,
Yeah.
what is happening, what you offer is going to, you're going to receive it. So you always offer something nice.
Yeah.
Okay. It is not that you're offering the deity. The deity is inside you. It's always inside you. Okay. We have all the devtas and all the deities inside, and we are offering, when we are offering something, at least we are offering something that we are going to get it in return.
Yeah.
So this you will learn when you read about the divisional charts, that what you have offered to your deity in the past life and what blessings you are giving. People ask that, why he has so much money, he is born in a wealthy family, because he has already offered something and the deity is giving him by way that all the wealth is coming to him.
Yeah.
Okay, so you will see that people who have benefic planets in the 10th house of Navamsha chart, they'll always have good financial status than others, because that is the money that you have offered to your Ishta Devta or your deity in the past life, and he's giving you back.
Okay. So moving forward, now, why are we appeasing devatas? What does devas even mean? Because those hold the key. Those are fundamental, to all our work. Everything is to do with devatas. You cannot segregate. You cannot segregate Jyotish, the Vedic knowledge or the Vedanga knowledge, and the devatas and all that, because everything is very intrinsically linked together. Okay, so the word deva literally comes from the root word divu, and divu literally means to shine light, and it's often used for like sporting and conquests and whatever occupational pursuits you want to do, or intellectual inspiration, whether you want to acquire some kind of, like let's say a PhD or something, then you have to keep some kind of sankalp. Sankalp is you have to keep some kind of resolution and offer it to the devata and say, please grant me this. Now, this is not called bribery. It's not called like, hey, I'm going to do it of my own. Of course you are, but don't have that ego. You have to surrender to the devta, because ultimately, remember, the creator, you can call it any name you want. You can, don't call it Narayana, don't call it Jagannath, call it anything you want. You can call it one source, but ultimately you have to surrender to that source and say, please give me that intellectual inspiration or that knowledge in order to complete that PhD, for example, or whatever the case may be. Maybe you want praise from people around you. Maybe you are pursuing some kind of pleasure or exhilaration or some kind of dreams that you want to do, or splendor, or you want to have a direction, a plan in life. All this is the purpose of the devas, to throw light on it and to guide us and illuminate and clear the blocks and put us on a path fundamentally of spiritual path. But before that, let our desires get exhausted, because if we get frustrated by our desires, then it's going to create a lot of anger within us. It's going to create frustration. It's going to create resentment. So why not? Let's just pursue the desires and see how far we go. But also be very mindful that these desires are like Rahu. There's a bottomless pit. Rahu is like a bottomless pit. There is no end to desires. So if you think like, oh, I want like at least, comfortable 50,000 pounds in my bank. Okay, lying spare. Okay, when you do get 50,000 pounds, then you'll say, actually, I want like 150,000. It will never stop. Kubera, which is the money, the devata for wealth, you'll never be satisfied. He's going to make a slave. He'll enslave you. So you have to understand the fundamental nature of desires, that the devta may give us all these desires, fulfill them. But ultimately, we have to be also mindful that there is a limit to our desires. We can't keep going on. Otherwise, we are back to Rahu track, endless desires, endless lifetimes, and endless suffering. So we have to balance out at some point, okay? And sometimes our desires may get completely frustrated. We may not even get our desires met in this lifetime. And then we'll have to come back for another and then another. So we have to be extremely, it's like a system, it's a solid system of living and dying. Literally, that we have to be conscious and mindful that what we desire, is it right for us? How much of it is karma? Because even our desires that we want have got a karmic blueprint to it. So we need to understand this and the role of devatas that they play in manifesting our desires. Now, often they say that in the Hindu pantheon, there are 33 crores, but that is just a figure. They are just variations. Ultimately, the Shatpat Brahmana does say that we speak of the core 33 devas, of which the 8 are Vasus, that is, they are the wealth givers. The 11 are the Rudras, and I will come to that. And then we have the Adityas, and they all add up to 31, including Lord Indra and Prajapati, which is Om, which is where we are all created from. So Lord Brahma entrusts his manufacturing process of creating human beings onto the Prajapatis, who with the help of the sound, the most primordial sound, Om or Aum, are able to create, as we just saw, through the gunas and through the Mahatattvas. And ultimately, Lord Indra is also one of the great Lord of the Devas, he's the king of the Devas. And so they all add up to 33. Okay. Hello. Okay. So the Ashtavasus is a very important concept here. And they are the Gana Devtas, and they are born to Dharma Deva and his wife Vasu, who's the daughter of Daksha. Now, Daksha is again one of the Prajapatis. Remember, I said Prajapatis are entrusted in manufacturing or creating all of us. And then there are many of these are also Soma, Dhara, Anila, Anala. They are all the Ashtavasus. And Ashtavasus are also associated with one of the Nakshadevta, Dhanishta, as one of the nakshatras lying in the constellation of Dhanishta is a constellation in the sign of Capricorn to Aquarius, and the Ashtavasus is the Vedic deity for Dhanishta. So often, there is a lot of overlap and lot of similarity between the Vedic deities, the nakshatras, and the Ashtavasus, and as we see the other devtas. And also you need to remember that these devtas, because there is an overlap, one of the most and the core devta that you need to worship is the Vedic deity of your moon nakshatra, because that is the giver of your health, that is the giver of your longevity, that is also, it will give you it rules your mind, and that is very vital. So by all means, pursue the Vedic deity, find out everything about your moon nakshatra, what sign, what nakshatra, what deity, the Vedic devata that is the ruling, the presiding deity for that nakshatra. So that is extremely important. And so again, I don't want to spend too much time. Now, Ekadasha Rudra are said to be the 11 Rudras. And in Rig Veda, they are fierce and destructive like the wild beast. Rud in Sanskrit literally means to cry, tears and tears of crying, Rudra Dev is also, the Rudra is also the Vedic Devata for the nakshatra of Ardra, which is ruled by Lord Shiva, but it's a very, very fierce nakshatra. So, and there, that's where, and it falls in Gemini, in the sign of Gemini, the nakshatra of Ardra, and the deity is Rudra, and that is associated with a lot of turbulence, lot of crying, and its depiction is a teardrop. So often, the Rudras will often are the deities when we are having we are like down and out on we have no resources, we are completely like frustrated, and at our, like Lord Rama, he was completely, given up hope of ever finding Sita, his wife, in the great epic Ramayana. It was Hanuman, one of the Maharudras, who came to his rescue. Okay, so that is how we use the Vedic deities. So Ekadasha Rudras play a vital role. This is a rough classification, but I just wanted to give you, there is no greater Rudra than Hanuman. He is like the Hanuman mantras. There is nothing that the Hanuman cannot solve. And remember, he is not Lord Ram. So you cannot go directly to Lord Rama. It's impossible. There's an access problem here. But with any devotee, of Lord Ram, and you will have much better luck. And especially if it is Hanuman, okay? And the mantras of Hanuman are absolutely the most powerful. to bring you out of your troubles and problems. Okay. So moving forward, then we come to the 12 Adityas, or the sun gods. Now you guessed it right. The 12 Adityas, or the sun gods, do map into the 12 sun signs, and they are the givers of all the wealth, abundance, and resources that you are seeking. And as you can see, there are 7 great horses, resplendent horses. And the story goes like this, that the sunrise, noon, sunset, and midnight occur in all these places because of the movement of the sun, of course. And he's also the giver of the Kal Chakra, that is the wheel of time, which is a very important concept again in Jyotish. And this wheel of is known as also the Samvatsara. So Samvatsara literally means about a period of about a year. And that year is ruled by the sun, of course, because the sun travels all the 12 signs in about a year. Okay. Is everybody so far so good? Yeah. And so the 7 horses pulling the chariot of the sun. And now each of these 7 horses have a particular name: Gayatri, Brihati, Usnik, Jagati, Trishtup, Anushtup, and Pankti. Each of these are nothing but the chandas, or the rhythm in Sanskrit. Okay, so the Gayatri is a chanda, or a meter in Sanskrit. In fact, the whole of the Rig Veda, which is one of the oldest Vedas on the planet, perhaps one of the oldest texts on the planet, of course, written in Sanskrit, and it is completely in a particular rhythm, which is called the Gayatri Chanda. Okay, so that is the rhythm, and it is all part of the Vedas. And so, and each of these also get mapped into the 7 days of the week. So we immediately know that what a vital, everything about the sun, it's resplendent, nothing is out of place. There is a logic and there is a sense of timing to do with the sun, everything about the sun. And that is the beauty about it. So, and they are harnessed by the demigod known as Arun Dev. As you can see here, he's Arun Dev here. And he is holds a yoke of 900,000 yojanas wide. Now, this is from Brihat Samhita. So I'm not going to go too much into the yojanas because that is all to do with calculations and all of that. But often they are referred to as the Aditya Devas, or as we can see here, I will move forward. Yeah, these are this is like the Vedic chart. Aries, the first house, Taurus. So the Devtas, the Adityas for each of these signs is the particular one. So for example, Aries is the Dhata Aditya. Okay. And so the mantra, there are specific mantras which are very, very powerful. And whichever, let's say you have sun in Taurus, okay? So the sun, but it may not be in the second house. The sun may be in Taurus, but it may not be in the second house. So the mantra will, so the Aryama will, Aditya will apply to you. So of course, a mantra of the Aryama will be very, very powerful for you. Let's say you are Pisces rising, okay? So who's going to be your Aditya? It's the Vishnu Aditya. So and it may, let's say you are under the influence of, let's say the sun is in Pisces as well as your Pisces rising. And so then if that is the case, then you have the power, because the natural house, the first house is like the house of Aries. So you are under the influence of 2 Adityas. One is where your sun actually is. So the sun may actually be in, like I said, in Pisces. So then it is a Vishnu Aditya. But it also has the energy of the first house, the Dhata Aditya. That is your creator, which is the Aries energy. It's like the go-getting energy. So that Aditya is also involved. So it's a multi-fold approach that we see. But anyway, this is just to give you an initial flavor of, how we read the sun signs. It's not just about, hey, it is in this particular sign. It is also where it falls and each of the Adityas. So it doesn't matter, even if you're not Aries rising, but I tell you, your rising sign or your Lagna or your ascendant will work as if it's Aries is on your head. Okay. So, and I'm not going to say anything more because each of these also get mapped into the various body parts, and then we can further make a further delineation. So there are many shlokas given by Parāśara as to how to figure out, what is excess. Let's say you have a lot of malefics in the first house in Aries, so how do you go about figuring out what is your actual guna, what is your actual tattva? Do you have a lot of fire? But then if you have Rahu and Saturn in Aries on your ascendant, then that is a lot of air energy on you. There is a lot of Vayu tattva on you, not just Aries, the fire energy. It is also a combination of Vayu. So you may suffer often your Vayu tattva, like in Ayurveda, they say like a lot of your problems come from Vayu tattva that may go off kilter. So that can also happen. So this is just, like I said, it's just an initial talking about the Adityas. Okay. Anything, any more, any questions? No?
Regarding the, regarding the K2 and liberation, because I have in 7th house K2 and of course then Rahu in first. So in 7th house I had moon. So moon in Mula in 7th house of K2. So will this be my last time here or not? Do I have to come back?
No, this will not be the last time actually, because what you're just saying that because you're looking at the D1 chart, that is your physical body. Okay. The body is created again and again, but what we have to see how the soul is transgressing through this world. Okay, for that we have to look something that is called the Atma Karaka, and it has to be looked into when in your D9 chart. This is when you completed your concepts of D1 chart, and when you transgress into D9, and then you learn about the Ashtachara Karakas, then you'll be able to see where the soul is going to move. From that point, you can see from past life where you going, where you're coming, and in the next life where you can go. This is something very advanced at a higher level. Right now, what you're going to do, you're learning the different myths and different concepts, but right now you're going to focus on the body part because this is a foundation course. It is not an advanced course. We go deep into the soul and whether we have, because there are 5 different types of mokshas actually. We have to see whether the person is, which type of moksha is going to person have. And the highest form of moksha is Kaivalyam.
Okay.
These are very high concepts of journey. Yeah.
Atma Karka is in Mercury or...
We have to see that, we have to see in the Navamsha chart, not in the D1. Okay. The D1, the 12th house is your loss. What is happening? The soul has to go, not the body. Body was created over here and body will be destroyed over here.
Yeah.
Okay. But the soul is created by Vishnu and the soul will return to Vishnu. For that, we have to see the Atma Karka. So that is why Vedic astrology have beautifully defined each and everything. First, we learn about the Lagna and the houses. What are the houses? In Vedic astrology, it is called Bhava. Bhava is nothing but what are the emotions? What is your emotion towards yourself? It is the first house. What is your emotion towards your wealth and your family? That is the second house. That means Bhava. Bhava means something that is coming from your emotion. What emotions you are. And whole life is actually compressed into these 12 houses or Bhavas that we learn. Okay. So there are multiple aspects and there are multiple variations and meanings of a single Bhava. From Lagna, you can see your health, you can see your appearance, you can see your name and fame. You can also see what taste you like. So there are so many things from the Lagna that you can see.
Okay, thank you.
So step by step, you're going to learn. Okay.
Thank you.
Don't go actually, because if you, what is happening, moksha or salvation means that freedom from all types sorts of desire. And if a person starts having to have a desire for, oh, I want salvation, or I want, then he'll never going to have it.
Oh,
It is the absence of all desire. It is the
Okay.
absence of desire that you have become samana, or which is called samadhi. Samadhi means that you have become neutral to everything.
yeah.
There is no happiness, there is no sadness. You have become zero or shunya. That is the highest form of moksha.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Understand. Thank you.
Okay, so here we are back to the incarnations. Now, what does it mean that when Parāśara says Ram Krishna as well as other incarnations of Ramapati, which he's alluding to as Vishnu, do they have their own individuality? Oh, tell me, excellent sage. So what do we mean by avatar? Because avatar, we cannot say you and I are avatars, okay? Avatar is specifically referred to as in like descending on earth, making an incarnation of a deity on this planet. So incarnation often goes hand in hand with an avatar. I can't say I'm incarnated, you know. Everybody will think I'm full of myself. So so here he continues saying that innumerable incarnations are born from the unborn Paramatma. Janardana takes the form of the grahas to bestow on the living beings the results of their karma. As we have seen earlier, that is how we get the results of the karma. Now, so when we talk of, so there is a little bifurcation. One is a Paramatma, which is like from the eternal one consciousness, or like the great supreme consciousness. And then we have the Janardana, which is also another name for Vishnu. So essentially the grahas are incarnating as a succession, as we have seen through the eminent births, whose purpose is to destroy our evil within us and restore the dharma or the natural way. Okay, so so the innumerable incarnations here, there are 4 of them, primary ones, which are full incarnations, okay, as distinct from like partial incarnations. So the Rama, Krishna, Narasimha and Sukara, or that is how Parāśara says for Varaha. Another name for Sukara is Varaha, are all fully incarnations of Vishnu or Janardhan, and others have their own individuality as well. So here he is talking about 100% God particle, Paramatmansha. So 100%, they're pure, as in 100% pure, is what Parāśara is saying. Purna avatar means, Purna in Sanskrit means full. And avatar, of course, we saw is like an avatar which has descended, reincarnated on this planet to save. So here, these 4 of them are mapped into our 4 kendras, or the 4 houses, the cardinal signs or the cardinal houses, which is the first house, which is the rising sign, the sunrise, Surya, and of course, Lord Ram had Surya or sun exalted in the 10th house with great directional strength. Okay, so that is absolutely the first house. So that is, so Ram, any afflictions to the first house, it is the Rama avatar that you have to go to get some kind of respite. And then we have, of course, various ways and means of like mapping some of the bijas or the seed sounds in order to avail and manifest some of the things for ourselves. And those are also associated with them. They vary, but by and large, let's say Shreem is associated, and as well as Om. So any malefic on your rising sign or ascendant, it is Om along with the Ramchandra mantra, which will help you. This is just an example. Okay, there may be other factors. So and then we have the 4th house, which is nothing but the midnight, and which carries the midnight energy, where the moon is very, very strong. The moon has directional strength, and the bija associated, and of course it is Krishna, and the bija is associated is the clean bija. Similarly, the seventh house is a Sukara, which is a boar or Rahu avatar. Now this is kind of like a very, very carries a sunset energy. It has a very, very strong Varaha or Sukara is the one of the great Purna avatars for the afflictions to the seventh house, and that comes under the purview of Varaha. And then we have the Mangal or Mars in the 10th, for the 10th, which is a very strong midday energy, as fierce and strong light and sun. Go out in the midday sun in the tropics and you will know what it is like to stand. You can't even stand for 5-10 minutes there, and that is the energy of the midday sun, a very strong fire. And the avatar for that is Narasimha. Okay, so all of this is the Purna avatars, or they're the full incarnations of Lord Vishnu. Okay, and then there are various other lists. One of the great lists comes from the Garuda Purāṇa, which is the 10 Dashavatar or the 10 avatars. Then there are 22 avatars in Bhagavad Purāṇa. Then there are sub-avatars of Janardhan avatar of Sri Mahavishnu. There are many, many lists, okay? But by and large, we follow the Dasha avatar, which is from Garuda Purāṇa. Garuda Purāṇa is a fantastic resource for Jyotish because it has some chapters also devoted to astrology. So you would do well to at least download a copy or read some of it, and you will get a lot of insights into it. Okay. Now this is like a classic depiction by an artist, of the avatar concept. Again, the 4 kendras get mapped as we see here. The 4 kendras, 1 Cancer, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, which are the 4 natural angular houses, get mapped to the 4 Vedas. They get consequently mapped to the 4 yugas, of which we are in the one of the 4th one, the Kali Yuga, where Supreme Lord Vishnu descends upon the earth in animal or human forms, and the mission is to preserve the world from increasing evil. So there are 10 principles of avatars of Krishna, avatars of Vishnu, out of which Krishna is, of course, one of them for the moon. Okay, so now here again, this is the Navagraha Dhyana Shlokam. We won't do the Navagraha Shloka, but I will go through each of the planet and which goes into which, the avatar, okay? Vishnu avatar. So Aditya cha Somaya Mangala Budhaya cha Guru Shukra Shani Bhyascha Rahave Ketave Nama. So this is like a little dhyana mantra, little very nice one for all the Navagraha, mantra. And of course, they are all mapped to the nakshatras, as you may well know, as I've discussed often. Now the Navagraha Stotra, like I said, I won't talk too much about it, but one who is red colored like hibiscus born from Maharishi Kashyapa, we are talking, of course, of Surya. So he's comparing it to the hibiscus flower, resplendent, Mahadyutim, one who destroys all darkness, Tamorim. Tamo is like Tamaguna. So, completely destroying darkness. Where there is light, there can be no darkness. We all agree on that. So it destroys the evils and the unrighteousness. And so I bowed out to Surya, the Divakaram, the causer of the day, Divakaram. So Surya has eyes of honey. This is from Parāśara, one of the opening chapters on grahas. He has honey colored eyes. He has square body. He's clean habits, bilious temperament, intelligent, has limited hair on his head, which you will learn later that one of the marks of a very strong sun person, solar person, is that often they are a little bit bald. So yeah, interesting. And one of the great avatars for Surya is Sri Ram from the Satya Yuga. Now we all have heard of the Ramayana, the great epic Ramayana, right? And Vishnu descended on this earth because there was a lot of eating of, carnivore, like people were eating meat and eating each other, and there was complete disrespect and all that. And that's when he landed Lord Rama to promote or to bring about a consciousness, Vedic consciousness, as well as put an end to the chaos and all that. And so finally the Satya Yuga ensued. Remember, these avatars come down and they stay there as long as their work is complete. And once their work is complete, they are willing to go, but they take on the human form because they have to understand what it feels like to be human, what it feels like to suffer, and to go through that whole experience. So his epic is, of course, given in the Ramayana. He's a perfect in every respect. He's called the Uttama Purusha. In Sanskrit, Uttama Purusha literally means the one who is an absolutely the perfected being, the perfect king, the most obedient son. And he is associated, of course, with Rishi Kashyap, as we saw earlier. And he and his wife Aditi were forlorn because one of their son's cousins, Hiranyayaksha, who was an Asura, he died in the hands of Lord Vishnu. So they were, now, lot of these sages, okay, they have multiple wives, but Aditi was his eldest one. And through Diti and Kashyap, they bore one of the sons called Hiranyayaksha, twins, Hiranyayaksha and Hiranyakshipu. So these were the two sons. And so, but Aditi was the one of his primary wife, but she was forlorn because her son lost the cousins and things like that. And then, but there was a big difference between the other sisters, Diti and Danu, because they spoiled their children. They were into asuras. Their children had become asura. That is, they were become demigods, and then danavs, even like little demons. And so she prayed and did deep penance because she was aghast by what was going on. And so Vishnu granted her a boon. And so she asked that she wanted a son who was perfect in every way, resplendent, all light and absolute, who will bring to the world all the knowledge there is. Absolutely, she was granted the wish. And so Surya was born of them, Kashyap and Aditi. And now the story goes like, but it was written, but this was in Satya Yuga. He came about in Satya Yuga. So what happened? What happened to the poet who wrote the great epic Ramayana? That's Valmiki, but that wasn't his original name. His original name was Ratnakar, and he was given by his birth parents. His name was Ratnakar, and his father was a sage called Prachetsa. And at a very young age, Ratnakar went into the forest and got lost. And then a hunter adopted him. And finally, he liked his foster parents and he grew quite well. And he became an ace hunter. So what happened was he got married finally. He got married to one of most beautiful ladies. And he had a large family. So what happened then? He could not cope up with such a large family. And this is the writer of, this is Valmiki before he became Valmiki, the writer, the great Adi Kavi, that is a writer of the great Ramayana. And finally, because he was brought under the care of hunter and he could not feed his large family and things like that, he turned into looting people. He would go into the forest, and because he was such a skilled ace, hunter, he would literally rob people of their, murder them, plunder them, and all that. And once the great Narad Muni of, as we saw earlier, Narad is often associated, a favored one with Lord Vishnu, though they did have some kind of a little, problems with each other. But ultimately, Narad always has the name of Narayana on his lips, and he has the ability to traverse all the three worlds in a blink of an eye. That is the Ketu energy also he carries. So Narad, literally, he came to him in the forest and he said, why are you looting people? Because he started to loot him. But Narad said, I have nothing to, I'm just a travel. I have got the veena, the music instrument, and he plays the music instrument, and I have nothing to give you, So he said, Narad said, why don't you do one thing? Why don't you go and ask your family if they are willing to take on board the karmas of your deeds, and of pillaging and looting and all that, and see what your wife and children have to say. And then he did, and he was shocked by the responses, because they said, no, your job is to just look after us. Why should we take on the karma of your misdeeds, And finally, he was like awakened. That was like a wake-up call for him. And finally, through penance and reparations, he got the blessings of Brahma to be able to write the Ramayana, to remember the Ramayana, which happened in Satya Yuga, which he wrote down in Treta Yuga. So that is a great contribution of Valmiki, the transformation. So remember, that's why the beauty of Narada, the Deva Rishi or Muni, he literally has the power to transform anything and anyone. If a person who has been born and bred as a hunter and was pillaging and looting people is able to write the great epic Ramayana, so I think anything is possible. So that is the big thing about Sri Ram. He is the Purna avatar for any afflictions, problems with the sun. He is like, the Uttama Purusha. He is the one we can follow. Then we come to the Chandra, which is the moon, one who has a hue of curd and icebergs, one who emerges from the Milky Ocean, who adorns Shiva in top, as you can see, on top of his head. I prostrate on that Chandra. And so Chandra is very windy and phlegmatic. He's knowledgeable, has a round body, has auspicious look, sweet speech, and is key operating word here, fickle-minded and lustful. Remember the nakshatras, where I showed you all the nakshatras, the 27, Chandra has 27 wives. Wow. So obviously he spends 111 day with each of the wife, but there is an exception and there is a problem too. When he comes to Rohini in Taurus, this is Rohini in Taurus, okay? When he comes to Rohini, he likes to spend a lot of time there, because Rohini, the moon, is not just exalted, it is also Vargottama. It is ruled, the particular nakshatra is ruled by Brahma. He enjoys it, he loves it. And he then doesn't want to see any of the other wives. And the other wives are just waiting on him and getting really annoyed. And that is the problem with Chandra. He changes his mind because, of course, he's a fast moving body. Yeah. He's a luminary which moves super fast. One of the fastest luminary or grahas which moves super quickly. And not just that, he is lusty, he is covetous, he wants more and more. That is why the nature of Chandra is all about wanting more, lustful. And that is why he wants to spend a lot of time in the nakshatra of Rohini and annoy all the rest of his 26 wives, okay? And of course, the Lord associated, the avatar associated with it is Lord Krishna. They say that any afflictions to the moon, it is only Somnath or Lord Krishna that can take you out of the problems. Moon with Rahu, moon with Saturn, on all that, it is Shakti of Lord Krishna that can take you out of it. Now, often they say, but how come Lord Krishna how was it possible for him to kill when he was like a little infant, a little baby on the lap of his mother? He could overturn a leg with his, a cart with his leg when he was so small, and he could kill a giant demon like Putana. How was that even possible? So this gives us a clue about his powers. He gives us a clue that how could he uproot the trees, the pair of Arjuna trees, which touched the sky because they were so high up in the sky, and when he was only crawling. And so that is really interesting. And even here in the Srimad Bhagavad Purāṇa, it is said, this is the excerpt from there. It says in an astronomical treatise named Kamanikya, the constellations at the time of appearance of Lord Krishna are very nicely described, because guess what? Krishna had moon in Rohini, and it was in the same sign in the Rohini. The nakshatra of Rohini is in Taurus. And so his moon was in Taurus in Rohini, and it is in Rohini even in his D9 or Navamsh chart. And so that gives you the power of that kind of a mind, which is very, very strong, because the moon is to do with the manas, the mind, and that is very strong. And so here it says that the child born at that auspicious moment was a supreme Brahman, or the absolute truth. And so we talk about his wonders as like a little infant and a baby, where he could do these marvelous things. And this is the great Naga that he's riding on happily and killing them off, no problems, on the river Yamuna, where he spent his childhood. He is literally playing, and he jumped into, because the water had turned sort of poisonous, and he literally jumped in the venomous snake, the Kalia snake, as it's called. Kalia is like the black colored snake, and he made the water pure again. So that gives us a lot of clue about Lord Krishna and his pursuits, and he's indeed the great giver of the Bhagavad Gita, which is a great spiritual as well as a philosophical discourse on the battlefield to Lord Arjuna by Lord Krishna. And of course it is part of the Mahabharata. And so it will, any problems in terms of, you may have, let's say, Mercury and Jupiter contact, and it's with malefics. The Bhagavad Gita anyway is a monumental text, and that is another way to solve a lot of your problems. So I would encourage everyone to read that. It is absolutely a master text. So any questions so far? No? No. Okay. So then we come to the Mangal, one who is born from the womb of the Mother Earth. Remember I said that Mars is born from literally from, it's called the Bhumi Putra, or the land from the son of the land, literally. And so he has a luster akin to lightning bolt, is adolescent, that is Kumaram, and one who beholds the power in his hand, Shakti Hastam, that is, he holds the power. And so that is a very, very, powerful description, like a lightning bolt. And of course, he has blood red eyes, because remember, he is the key giver of the Agni Tattva. He's one of the great governors for the Agni, or the fire energy. And he's fickle-minded. He also is fickle-minded. He changes his mind. Liberal, bilious, given to anger, has thin waist and thin physique. So, and blood red eyes. And of course, you would think that, he's willing to jump into a fight, because he is ultimately the great commander-in-chief. Now, the Devata associated is the Narasimha Dev, as you can see here. The personality of Godhead assumed the incarnation of Narasimha to vanquish the great fears of the demigods. Now, why was Narasimha born? Because remember, we visited Hiranyakashipu, who was one of the great asuras, one of the twin brothers, wanted to become immortal, and he was gaining a lot of power, and he wanted to remain young forever. So he meditated and got the blessings of Lord Brahma after severe penance and all that. And so he was granted the boon that he could neither be killed, neither by a man, nor by a beast, nor in daylight, nor in night, neither inside or outside a building. Having obtained the wish, he considered himself the supreme God and forbade all worship of gods by anyone. So literally, he got really ambitious and things like that. But his son, Prahlad, there's a lot in Vedic literature about Prahlad, who was an absolute devotee of Lord Vishnu. And this really annoyed Hiranyakashipu. And there he said numerous ways. He set up, who kills one's own son? But anyway, he wanted to kill Prahlad, and asking his sister Holika to sit with Prahlad in fire. And finally but somehow situations happened that he always escaped. So Prahlad basically said, when asked by his father that, hey, can you tell me where is your Lord Vishnu? And he said, he's sarvavyapak, that is, he's everywhere, he's present everywhere. And so Lord Vishnu then emerged as a half lion, half man from the pillar, carried him under the arch of the doorway, neither indoors nor outdoors. The time was in the evening, twilight zone, and neither night nor day. And then finally, he with his claws on his earth, neither on earth nor in sky, he killed him. And finally, Prahlad was saved. So that is how, that is the power of Narasimha Devta. Any Mars afflictions, again, it's a Narasimha Devta. So then we come to Buddha. Now, Buddha is again one whose complexion is darker as the bud of Priyangu herb. Now, again, there is a thing about Priyangavadi. This is a Sanskrit name for a group of medicinal plants. So it is also a herb and having an extremely pleasant appearance, beautiful, Rupena Pratimam, intelligent, Soma. So he's also Soma Suta, that is, he's born from the moon, that is the Soma, another name for the moon, and he's endowed with pleasant nature, and he is Saumyam, Soma Saumyam, so very pleasant, very pleasant nature, but he's also the Soma Suta. Soma Suta is he's born from the moon. So these are some of the characteristics of Mercury, and endowed with attractive physique. He's like the eternal prince. He's fond of jokes, has a mix of all three humors. Obviously, he's talking of Ayurvedic humors. So this is a very, any problems with Buddha, it is, of course, Gautam Buddha. That is one of the one of the avatars. Vishnu avatars is the Gautam Buddha. And we all know about Buddhism and what came about. In our parampara, we often worship, instead of for Mercury, we worship Balabhadra. Okay. So again, there is a long story, Balabhadra, I won't get into that, but that is whom we worship. But of course, Buddha, Gautam Buddha is one of the key figures for map to Mercury. Then we come to Brihaspati, which is Jupiter. He's a preceptor of the Deva and the Rishis. He's resplendent with golden luster, and his embodiment of intelligence, Buddhi Bhutam, and Lord of the three worlds, three lokesham. Three lokesham is like the three worlds. He is like complete mastery over, and that is Brihaspati. He has large body, gold hair, tawny, dirty golden hair, and dirty as in tawny honey dew colored hair and eyes, and phlegmatic, intelligent, and absolutely learned. Of course, we are talking of Jupiter here. We are talking of the ether element. And the great Vamana avatar, that is the dwarf, is the great Vamana avatar is mapped to as an avatar for Brihaspati. Now, there is a lot of, again, like I said, Google it, the Vamana avatar with 3 steps. He's mapped into like the 3 steps. Bali or Mahabali was like a very powerful Asura king, very powerful. And all he told, Vamana avatar said was, I want just, my feet are small, and just give me wherever my feet land, I will, take that land. So of course, Bali, seeing like, oh my God, he's such a small one, there's no problem, I can crush him easily. But the minute he put his foot and he started moving, all the worlds got destroyed. And that is the power of the Vamana avatar. Within 3 steps, which is akin to the 3 steps of Vishnu, entire worlds got destroyed. So the Vamana avatar is a very, very powerful, avatar in and mapped to Jupiter, which is Brihaspati. Okay. And as you can see that he's a real Pandit here. Look at his choti, that is a Ketu sign, and he's a Vaishnav. As you can see, it's absolutely, absolutely beautiful. So then we come to Shukra, which is Venus, one who has luster akin to a ball of snow and that of lotus, and is the highest preceptor of the Daityas. Daityas are like demonic, but again, Daityas are between, like, not asuras, but they are sort of like, demigods. And Paramam Gurum, one who can narrate all the Shastras, and obeisance to that son of Maharishi Bhrigu. So the Bhrigu clan is associated with Shukra. And Shukra is very charming, splendorous physique, excellent, great in disposition, charming eyes, poet, phlegmatic and windy, and has curly hair. So here you can see the imagery here. But the Parashuram is associated with one of the avatars, with the avatar, one of the Dasha avatars associated is Parashuram for Venus. And he was born to Rishi Jamagni and Renuka and belonged to the Bhrigu clan. So the Rishi Bhrigu is very much alive and well with Shukra or Venus. So Venus afflicted, and remember, Shukra also, Shukracharya also carries the power of death, kind of deflecting death, because it has a Mrutyunjay power. So if you're in Shukra Mahadasha, Shukra Dasha, or Shukra Mahadasha, or things like that, you will have some kind of, you will acquire, if you of course work at it, acquire some kind of like ability to heal and kind of deflect some of the problems and disease and things like that. That's a very important facet of Shukra or Shukracharya, because ultimately, of course, it was, Brihaspati also got it, but the Mahamrutyunjay or the Mrutyunjay or the Sanjeevani was given to Shukracharya. Okay. So Parashurama was carrying an axe presented to him by Lord Shiva, of whom he was an ardent devotee. And of course, because Shukracharya finally had some kind of, problems with Lord Shiva, but ultimately he merged with Lord Shiva. And so at the time, Kartavirya was a powerful king, and once went to Jamagni home when he was out, and after a meal stole the Kamdhenu cow. Remember the Kamdhenu that we saw in the Samudra Manthan, the wish-fulfilling cow who gave endless quantity of milk. So he stole Rishi Jamagni's cow, which was really naughty. And then Jamagni was enraged, and he went and killed the king and brought the Kamdhenu back, the cow back. And on hearing this, the son of the king came back and killed Jamagni. So there was like this whole thing, like, you stole my cow, I'm going to kill you. And so all that ensued. And then finally he killed his father. And so Parshuram was absolutely enraged, and he wanted to avenge, and he did avenge the death of his father by killing all the Kshatriyas in the 21 battles. And hence he is often depicted by carrying that weapon, which has been presented to him by Lord Shiva. So that is the power that holds, so Shukra has that power. It's because it's mapped into Parshurama. Okay.
What does everybody get from this thing? But why there's so much of killing when it comes to Venus? Because Venus lords the natural 7th house, and 7th house is the house of love and war both. Okay. Yeah. And people are most jealous.
I will, if you can hear me.
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, you can. Okay. I will add to that the Mayan symbology or iconography.
Yeah, they went to war when they saw the Venus in the sky.
It's a king holding the head of a person who has been decapitated.
Yeah.
And if you looked at the transit of Venus to the sun that occurred in 2004 and 2012, and you will see that there was some decapitation going on in different countries that again has never repeated themselves. And you'd also see that the midpoint of that is where we had the collapse of the stock market in 2008. So Venus is not always as nice as it's portrayed.
Oh,
Venus is not
in Western astrology.
Nice.
Absolutely,
yes.
Absolutely.
No,
she is Vishnu, the god of war. If you look at it from Isis, the true love was sex and war.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. That is why the 7th house, for which the Venus is the significator and the natural lord also. Libra is in the natural 7th house. That is the house of love and war.
Yes.
And what burns most of the people is love. The highest fire that a planet has is Venus. Venus has the highest fire. That is why he's called as Shukra by sage Parāśara. Shukra means that you have to become one of the best among the best. So Venus has the ability to heal also, but if Venus gets angry, he has the ability to kill also. That is why the natural 7th house is also a Marga. 2nd and 7th house are Margas in the natural astrology, and 2nd and 7th house are the houses that inflict death. Actually, there are the Marga house, and both the houses are ruled by Venus.
Yes, so and then you have to look at the higher. You have to also look at the higher octave, which is Neptune. For compassion.
Yeah, that is why Venus, compassion. That is why when Venus, see what is happening, Venus is full of compassion. When there is excessive of compassion, that is the time when things get started nasty. Okay. That's
where Venus is exalted. That's where Venus is exalted. In Pisces.
That is why Venus is exalted in Pisces, because Venus is only getting exalted when it's going for a higher knowledge to Jupiter.
Correct.
Okay,
yes.
And you see that Pisces has 2 different lords. One is Jupiter and the Mula Trikona, the office is Ketu. What is happening? So Venus is telling, if you want Jupiter, then you are staying in Sansara. And if you want Ketu, then you're going for spiritual life.
Yes.
Venus can give the highest bhakti also. And Venus can make a lover kill his spouse for jealousy. Venus is also very jealous.
So, the greatest of, like, Hitler was born Libra Lagna, Lord of
Venus in the 7th house with Mars, Sun, and Mercury.
Yeah. So very, very strong. A lot of people say that, Aries people are real fighters and Scorpios are real fighters. It is Libra who can really fight. Nobody can challenge them. Nobody.
That is why Libra is depicted by a balance. It's a scale. That balance has to be maintained. If they lose the balance, then they can be very, very destructive.
Yeah.
And that's why you have to look at Saturn.
What if Venus is in the 12th house with Rahu? Be very careful with the relationships, that you can fall for the wrong guy at a time. 12th house is the house of your marriage also. Okay. So you'll come to that when the planets are conjunction together, Venus and Rahu, what is happening to Venus and how to do that is a different thing that's a different level of conjunction when you read. So Venus has to be taken very, very seriously. And if you read the higher philosophy of Venus, then you'll find that Venus is not good in any of the signs. It's just water. You keep water anywhere, it will become stale and it will start to rot.
So
And
it's
One who understands Venus will never marry.
Well, you got the sulfuric acid part of it too.
Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, one who truly understands Venus is never married. One who truly understands, one who has a perfect Venus, what Ramakrishna Paramahans, he was married, but he left whole life of a celibate. He maintained celibacy after getting married. So you have to read about it. What is the higher form of Venus? What is Venus is actually telling? Okay.
Yes.
That
Okay.
is how the Venus works. Venus is actually one of a very crucial planets. So when Venus is actually retrograde, it is the best Venus, because Venus, the movement of Venus, it is said in Parāśara is Kutil. Kutil means it's very confusing. You don't know whether she is with you or against you. So when it's retrograde, then it is definitely going in the right way. So we'll find that people with Venus retrograde have a very good relationship.
And they
You get
use the symbol in World War II on the aircrafts.
Yeah.
You know, it's path. Yeah, the path of Venus.
Venus
This is the star, the 5-pointed star.
Venus can lead to a lot of destruction, actually. That is why we make sure that Venus is always benefit. You can see that in normal, the incarnation for Venus is Parushama, but in our tradition, we take it as Rishikesh, because we don't want person to go for fighting. We want him to form as a form of Vishnu, who is always fulfilling the desires.
Yeah.
Okay, so this incarnation that she is been studying are nothing but how one of the energy of the plants can manifest in your life. Okay, incarnation is the finest ray of that planet that can manifest in life. If you can achieve that finest ray, then you will achieve a very high level of purity.
Yeah.
Okay. So that is how, that is when you are talking, when you take the name of Ram, what is Ram? It is one of the purest ray of the sun. Okay. That is why when Valmiki was set to chant, Mara, Mara means to die. Mara, Mara, Mara. Then it starts Mara, Mara. It started sounding like Ram, Ram, Ram. So what is Ram? It is one who has the power to reverse the energy of that. Valmiki has killed so many people. He was a dacoit. He was a bandit in the forest.
Yeah.
And he killed so many. And he started, he said, oh, now you have to just chant, die, die, die. It's what in Sanskrit is called Mara. Mara means to die. That's from Marga. When he said Mara, 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 then he starts after a time, it starts something like Ram, Ram, Ram. So what is the energy of Ram? Energy of the Ram is that he has the power to absolve you from all the sins of your soul. That is the power of an exalted sun. Okay, that it represents soul and it has the power to remove all curses in your life. That is how the things that Avtara we are going to, that is why Parāśara especially teaches Avtara in a very early thing, because now you know that if a person is coming with a very bad moon or very bad sun, and you can see, oh, his sun is actually bad, what is he's losing values in life, then you give him a Ram mantra. So what will happen? It will start having some value. What is Vishnu? Vishnu is always about following your value and your dharma, your duty. The person will start making up his duties. What is the duty of the sun? It is that to make the sure that the soul is on a right path. You'll read about it, what sun represents as a Sarvartha Karaka. Okay, and moon is the mind. What is Krishna? Krishna is always playing with the mind. So he never fought a war. You say that Krishna, if you read about Mahabharata, Krishna was only the chariot, and although he gave the Bhagavad Gita, he never fought the war. He's all about the mind. Sri Ram was straightforward. He went to the war with his arrow, but Sri Ram was Sri Krishna was very, very cunning. He said, if I kill those people, as I'm a Vishnu avatar, all these people will get moksha, and I don't want to give them moksha because they are all sinners. So he never fought a war.
Yeah.
Okay, he made sure that Arjun killed everybody. So no moksha. And Sri Ram was straightforward that, okay, I am here to remove you of your sins. And any person Sri Ram killed, you killed by Vishnu, you'll get moksha. That is the power of Vishnu. That is how. So you will read about Astrology, and you will apply it in the chart. And it's very fun to see over a period of time, because this is very, very basic, because you guys are very, very beginners, you need to read about, then you have to start applying what stories they are telling and how we can apply it to the astrology. It is day-to-day life. It's day-to-day life. It's about all the day-to-day life. How can you maintain Vishnu? Vishnu is all about purity. All these planets, all these avatars are telling that what can be the most pure form of the planet. The purest form of the planet is the incarnation of Vishnu.
Okay.
Okay. So that means that there is purity in everybody. Even Rahu has a Vishnu avatar, then there's a purity in Rahu also. There's nothing called something totally impure. It's just like you see when you read about China, it's like yin and yang. Darkness has light and light has darkness. It's like it's duality. That every planet has a pure ray. Every planet has a good aspect also. That is Vishnu is telling that everything has goodness in it. Vishnu take the avatar of Shiva when he as a form from the planet of Rahu. Then what he's doing when he's taking the form of Shiva, he's going down to the depths of the hell and taking out the souls that are trapped over there. So that is one of the highest manifestation of Rahu, that Rahu can also grant moksha, provided that you have become that pure.
Okay.
Are you getting my point?
Got your point. Yes, very well said. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
It refers
So
like to the
everybody's
7
pure.
rays.
Everybody has Vishnu, everybody has Narayan inside them. That is why.
As we saw that we are Jivatma, the spark
we
of
have
Vishnu.
Atma.
So
and Vishnu will come to take us.
Okay, so we can carry on this discussion. I just want to complete the other 3, and Shani, which is Saturn, Neelanjam, Samabhasam, Ravi Putram. Ravi Putram is son.
Yeah, this is a very, very good mantra for Saturn. Neelanjam Sambhutam Ravi Putram.
Beautiful
Yavagrajam Chaya Martandam Sambhutam Tam Namami Shanicharam. This is a Vedic mantra given by Vedvyasa.
Absolutely beautiful. So Ravi Putram is a son of sun. Ravi is another name for Surya or the sun. Yamagrajam, the elder brother of Yamaraj, which is I don't know who that is. Chaya Martanda. So basically the his mother is Chaya, and Sambhutam Tam Namami, and I pray and obeisance to Shaneshcharyam. So this is essentially a beautiful description, Neelanjan. So there is the luster of that collyrium. It's like the dark thing you put in the eyes. And so he has that dark luster. That is the nature of Saturn, the darkness. And there is always a dichotomy between, and we won't go into I think I've done it before it's on the YouTube channel, but this whole thing about the sun, Surya's sun is Shani, and they have this whole problem that, Saturn feels completely out of sync with someone who's so resplendent, so bright. His father is so exalted, such light, while Saturn is exactly the opposite. He's depressed, he's dark, he's kind of, unhappy, and he's kind of on the low. And so there is no, what's the word? There is a big problem with the energies of both of them. But you have to honor both. If there is an aspect of Sun and Saturn, you have to walk with both, especially if it is an opposition. If it's a conjunction, then, of course, it's a slightly different, but if it is Sun opposite Saturn, you have to walk with both the energies. So Shani has an emaciated and tall physique, has tawny eyes, is windy in temperament, has big teeth, indolent and lame, and has coarse hair. And that is the nature of Shani. And that is by and large what Shani is about. But remember, in the Samudra Manthan, it was the Kurma, which is the great celestial tortoise, without which the whole production would have failed. So you have to understand that without Shani, we have no stability. We have nothing. We are just going to die and with disease. That's it. That's the problem. So without the Shani Devata, we cannot, without the Kurma Devata, we cannot harness the energy, the positivity, the ray, as Akshat said, the positive ray of Shanishcharya, we just cannot. And so the Devas often, like in the great deluge, at the beginning of the Kalpa, there is a massive pralay or deluge, and they lost their immortality due to the curse of the short-tempered sage Durvasa. So he basically, it's like a whole story that goes with it, and he got cursed, and essentially the Devas started to lose their powers, and that is why the whole production of Samudra Manthan had to be done. Okay, so the Kurma avatar is a very, very vital one because it keeps us stable. And there are beautiful mantras, Om Namo Bhagavate Kurmai or Om Namo Bhagavate Akuparai. These are all various mantras of Kurma, the avatar of Kurma or for Shani. So yeah, and I'm sure you will learn as you go on. And they are all 12-syllable mantras by and large.
May I comment on one thing?
Yeah.
Because we spoke about how Saturn basically is dark and difficult and restrictive and so on.
Yeah.
But during the Golden Age, it was Saturn that was is the ruler of the Golden Age, and we're going into the age of Pisces, where Saturn is the second ruler to Uranus for Aquarius. And then the next age would be Capricorn, which one would presume would be a golden age. But going back in the past, when you had the golden age, it was Saturn that dimmed the light of the sun to give us that crescent moon that we see on the Islamic symbol and elsewhere. So it played a very, very important role, and it is said, it may be in mythology, that it was much closer to the earth during the golden age and has taken a step back to the position that it is now in the solar system. So could you comment on that, the role of Saturn as a symbol for the golden age or purity?
Now, let me tell you, what does Shani means? Shani means gold. Okay. And what is one of the things that, the only thing that can make Saturn gold? It's purity. If a person is extremely pure of heart and karma, and his actions are not defiled by any of self-motivation and false gains, then Saturn is going to be absolutely gold for you. Why? You see that Saturn is the lord of the natural 10th and the 11th house. What work you are doing and what gains you are receiving. If you're doing wrong work and you're having wrongful of gain, or you have wrong gains or wrong income, then Saturn is going to be very negative for you. If your karma is good, and if you are taking what is duly due to you, and if you have your income is good, then Saturn is not going to be a problem. Okay.
So basically what you're saying is that it's more working now from an unconscious level rather than as a physical object in the sky.
Yeah, so it's physical objects.
But they all are more than just physical objects.
Because they are all physical objects. That is why you're saying, because all the 5 Tara graphs, all the planets are there, only Rahu and Ketu. And
well, I meant in terms of in ancient time when it was closer.
In ancient times, okay, what is
much more visible.
When there are different, there was much more visible because they can be seen by the naked eye. They can still be seen with the naked eye, but because of this air pollution everywhere, we cannot see the stars. Otherwise, they don't have a telescope to see, oh, this is Saturn, oh, this is Jupiter. It can be seen through the naked eye. And there are different things. When we divide this astrology between the different religions of the world, there's a different concept about them. What is Saturn to an Islam, and what is Mars to Hinduism, and what is Jupiter to Krishna? These are different things actually, okay? Because each and every different religion is emerging from a root or the energy of a different planet.
A different ray.
Yeah, of a different planet. Yeah, okay. That's what's sad. But most of the Hinduism that we saw in recent times is the emergence from the energy of Mars.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
And the Islam we saw was the energy
from the age of Aries.
Aries, okay. And it's not from the age of Aries. This is a different thing. What type of energy that a planet is, what a certain religion is having. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And Islam was the energy of Saturn, and Christianity has the energy of Pisces. When Jesus was born, he was Pisces Lagna. It's the energy of Jupiter, because he was preaching everybody's sequel, everybody's brotherhood. That is how the energy is evolving over the period of time. Okay, because in Vedic astrology, we see what signifies Saturn. Why we are saying Saturn as Shani? Because if Saturn is denoting poverty, if you have too much of gold, you're not going to be poor. And poverty can be in terms of anything. It can be of the body, it can be of the mind, and it can be of the soul. At what level the Saturn is afflicting you, you have to see. Is it afflicting you at the mind level? And a person is very poor from the mind, he is not happy. He has all the wealth in the world, but he is not happy. Or he is poor at the body level, his health is not good, he is suffering. Okay, or he is poor at the soul level, that his direction towards the divine is lost. Remember one thing, why Saturn is opposite to Sun? Because Saturn is because Sun is the king who is upholding highest dharma, and Saturn is saying, okay, I get exalted in the Venus, whatever you give me, I'll accept.
So that's been driven by the house and the planet position that may conjunct
that's why
Saturn?
it depends by the house. Yes, there are a lot of things that you see. How is your Saturn in your chart? How it is in Navamsha? What sign it is in? Is Saturn in the signs of Jupiter? Then it's much better. It is Saturn in which Navamsha it is. Then you have to see. You have to go through the whole till D30. You have to see in D60. Then you see. Then what is Saturn in music? And what Charkarka Saturn is denoting. See, it's very, very, you cannot judge, oh, I have Saturn in the 9th house, or I am going to have this problem, or this. Yes, Saturn in the 9th house is bad. That means that the child is going to have problems with the father, the problem is good, but there are different aspects also. Okay, everything is changing, because you see that twins born with the exact same chart, but they have a different destiny.
Correct.
Yeah, in Vedic astrology, you will learn how to feel about how this planet is manifesting in our life. There are so many charts. I can give you an example. I have did twins, and they are completely opposite.
Well, that's run by the Gemini aspect, right? Of Gemini. I've been
because why? Because
angel on one shoulder, a devil on the other. A simple way of putting it.
Yeah, there's a simple way of saying, but there's also subtle level at the supraconscious level.
Yes.
Okay. At the supraconscious level, because what is happening? So two angels are born, exact, they have the same degrees, but their names will be different. That name will also have impact on their personality. What planet that name is activating. Okay. So for an example, her name is Sonal and my name is Akshat. Mine is coming from the sun and her is coming from the moon. She has a more energy of a caring energy, and I'm more direct. I'm only giving the concepts. I'm not saying she's trying to explain everything, but I'm exactly to the point, like the sun's pinpoint, like this. So that is how everything is going to play a part.
Okay.
Everything about you is the planet's energy. Yes, please continue.
Yeah, thank you. Let's continue, because I just want to finish these two and then we can have a discussion. One whose body, that's Rahu, is severed from the head, Ardha Kamyam, one who is extraordinarily powerful, Mahaviryam, who oppresses Surya and Chandra. Now, why oppresses Surya and Chandra? Because during the eclipses, obviously, we know what Rahu does, what the North Node does, it's hijacked. It basically eclipses the sun and the moon. And born out of the womb of Simika and obeisances to that Rahu. So essentially the nature, Simika was was his mother. And she was also one of the Kashyap's, wife, one of the many wives of Rishi Kashyap. And so Simika wanted, she also saw Aditi being granted, a wish-fulfilling thing through Vishnu. And so she went and said that if Aditi can get her wish fulfilled for a son like Surya, then I'm also going to ask for a son. So she went to Aditi, and Aditi said, sure, go ahead, ask whatever you want, from Lord Vishnu. So Simika also went to Lord Vishnu and said, I want a son who people will fear, and who is fierce, and whom everybody will be fearing. So Lord Vishnu looked at her and said, it's granted. And the thing is, later, Lord Vishnu, because Aditi is like an absolute mother of all goddess, she's a goddess of all, literally very motherly and caring, and she is like the goddess of all the devas. She literally said, she told Lord Vishnu that, wow, that is strange, because he came to discuss it with her. And he said, that is strange that Simika now has got, Rahu. And essentially, it is Lord Vishnu was having a laugh. He said, that is what she wanted, and that's what she got. So Rahu often creates a lot of fear, shocks. A shock element is classic to Rahu. A transit of Rahu, Rahu Dasha, Antardasha, Mahadasha, anything. Problem is, Rahu at some point will create a lot of shock within you. So you have to really be careful. The ferocity of Rahu, because Rahu's essence is only one thing. It wants to find shortcuts. It wants more and more. And it wants you to bring you back on this planet out of unending desires. And that is why that is the nature of Rahu. And that's why it also creates fears, because often what we don't get, or we feel that what we have is going to be taken away from us. And that is all creates fear. And that is all Rahu. So essentially, the avatar associated with Rahu is a Varaha avatar or Sukara. And the great mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Varaya or Om Namo Bhagavate Sukaraya, is one of the absolutely classic mantras. And not just that, if you have Rahu or Rahu aspect to the seventh house, or Rahu affliction to the seventh, then definitely one of the great mantras is the Om Namo Bhagavate Varaya or Om Namo Bhagavate Sukaraya. So
what is the best thing that a Rahu does? It creates differences. And what is the best difference that is created? It has created a difference of pressure between your lungs and the outside, so that you can breathe. Rahu is the reason why everybody is breathing in this life. Always remember this.
Because he's
okay.
he's a
your
source.
First breath is given by Rahu. The moment a baby is born, he takes a first breath. It is given by Rahu. Because Rahu is actually making you come back again, and he has to give you breath so that you come over here and live and do your bhoga. That is why Rahu is giving you breath.
Yeah.
And Rahu is also death when it comes. Okay, Rahu is causing death also in the Chakra Dasha or in.
Okay.
But that is a different aspect.
Yeah, that is a different. But also remember, Rahu, like Shani and Rahu, both are, Vayu Tattva, that is the air element. So Shani is like the governance. He governs and manages and directs the Vayu energy, or the air element, while the source of it is Rahu. So there is that whole Rahu is very much to do with very strong air element. So again, why was Varaha avatar brought in, now again, the brother, earlier we saw in the Narasimha's case, that the demon, his twin brother, this is his other brother, Hiranyayaksha, he prayed for Lord Brahma and he got a lot of powers. So again, no beast nor man nor God could kill him. And somehow the list of beasts, the name of boar was missing. Okay, and then he started a campaign of plunder across all the lokas. He stole the Vedas, the scriptures from Lord Brahma while he was sleeping, and performed huge atrocities. So in order to retrieve the Vedas, Lord Vishnu came on as the role or avatar of boar or Varaha, literally, which means like the pig-like shape. and he brought out the earth from under the ocean using its two tusks. He then killed Hiranyayaksha and retrieved the Vedas and to the rightful owner, which is under the custody of Lord Brahma. So that is the power of Varaha. You know, it's a kind of a very high form of Rahu. Now we come to Ketu, one whose luster is that of the Bhutia flower, Palash, which is a very, very auspicious flower. One who is the chief of the stars and the grahas. Tara Graha Mastakam, extremely fierce. Raudram, that is absolute fierce. One who's the embodiment of fierceness. And violent and terrible Ghoram, obeisances to the Ketu. So here we are talking about Ketu, but the nature of Rahu and Ketu up till a point is quite similar. Okay, up till a point, as given by Parāśara. Rahu has smoky appearance with a blue mixed physique. He resides in forests and is horrible. He's windy in temperament and intelligent. And the similar thing will, but there is a big differences in their guna and tattva. Okay, begin with the tattva. The tattva of Ketu, that is the element of Ketu, is very strong Agni. Fire element is very strong. It's like a laser beam of fire, very strong. And unlike Rahu, which has heads, Ketu is headless. It's just followers. You know, it just follows. And hence, you don't need a head. You don't need to think to get to the path of moksha. You just have to be, you know, that is the path of Ketu. And Ketu is also the, you know, it's often depicted in ordinary life, like they will wear torn clothes and, you know, while Rahu will be all about, you know, nice drinks. And remember, Rahu nakshatra is Shatabhishach nakshatra, and Shatabhishach is all about fine drinks, beautiful drinks, you know, whether it's cocktails to this or that. While Ketu is the perennial bhikshuk, it is like a torn clothes. Whoever gives whatever they give, he's happy to receive. And that is the nature of Ketu, you know. And so he's completely headless, completely a follower. That's why armies are often, you know, the soldiers who fight in the front line come under Ketu. So that is the big difference between Rahu and Ketu, you know. So you have to understand that there's many things like that about all the grahas, and I mean, it's literally is pretty fascinating. And the other thing is that Ketu's also is the Matsya avatar, came associated with the Matsya avatar. So what is the Matsya avatar? He is one of the king named Manu. And one of the first created man, like Adam from the Bible. And he performed severe penance for thousands of years. And when he was performing ablutions with river water, a small fish came into his hands. Just as he was about to throw the fish back into the river, the fish requested the king to save its life. And heeding its request, the king put the fish into a jar of water, but the fish kept growing and kept growing. So there was nothing enough. You know, no container was enough. Even the river wasn't enough. Then he threw it into the Ganges, then into the ocean. And then the king realized that it was the great Lord Vishnu himself. And then the Lord made appearance and made special request to the king. And then it was predicted that the world will come to an end by a huge flood, and requested the king to build a huge boat to take the 7 sages. Remember, we visited the Sapta Rishis earlier on in this presentation. So he basically said, take the Sapta Rishis because they are the holder of all the knowledge coming from Dakshinamurti Shiva, all the plants, animals, and he told them to appear as a fish to propel the boat to the Mount Himavan for surviving until all the destruction of all the galaxies and all the solar system is over, all the entire for entire yuga or a eon is over. And that's when we will all come out to begin the whole process of creation again, you know, with the new knowledge and things like that. So true to his word, after 7 days, now this has often the resonances of Noah and the ark, you know, so after 7 days, the Lord appeared and the king tied the boat to the fish by using the royal serpent Vasuki, and the fish took all of them to Mount Himavan, which is obviously associations with the Himalayas, which is one of the highest peaks on the planet, and kept them there till the flood was over, and you know, yeah, until a new era began. So essentially, the Matsya avatar, you know, Mahamatsya, one of the great mantras of Mahamatsya, Matsya avatar is Om Namo Bhagavate Mahamatsya. So one of the benefits of this is that essentially Ketu can save you from a lot of problems and lot of things, and it can give you Ketu Dasha. People say that Ketu Dasha is only for 7 years. You know, how bad can it be? But I tell everyone that if in those 7 years, Ketu can make you completely lost. And unless you have like a whole, like that fish pulling you and tugging you towards Dhruv Tara, towards some kind of like a focus there, you cannot, you will just dissolve under the energy of Ketu or the Antardasha or the sub period of Ketu. Ketu is a very difficult energy to harness, very difficult. Unless you are very spiritually aligned, Ketu is absolutely impossible. And even in my Ketu Dasha, I got into, you know, financially, I didn't care because I just assumed, and it is true, because financially, if you're looking for a financial gain, forget it. Ketu's not going to give you a penny. You know, it will give you just enough to survive. It will just give you enough to be able to focus on the next thing, you know, the next spiritual thing, or to learn. But I did manage to do a lot of work in terms of spiritual learning, Jyotish learning, and all of that in the Ketu Dasha. So I would absolutely, you know, I have great fondness for Ketu or the Matsya avatar. And but then I'm also Scorpio Lagna, so I'm ruled by Ketu. You know, one of my co-rulers is Ketu, so I have great affinity for Ketu, so which is obvious. So, and but one of the key things is that the Mahamatsya is definitely one of, and Narad Muni or the great Jaimini Rishi or Ved Vyasa all have associations with Ketu along with Ganesh. So any problems in sub period of Ketu, Ganesh or any of the rishis will absolutely be perfect for pulling you out of that whole confused state, the delirious state, because it's like absolute confusion. You don't know, it's headlessness. You don't know where to go, what to do. You're completely lost. And that is the energy of Ketu. And that is the only way to come out of that. And that did help. I mean, my Gemini course began in the Dasha of Mahadasha of Ketu. So, you know, so I feel quite blessed, you know. So all is not bad is what I'm saying. You know, the planet.
You have a fantastic Ketu actually.
Yeah, it is in the
yes.
11th house. So, but
yeah, it's not good for wealth. It's conjoined, I think, on your Hora Lagna, but it's a good Ketu for learning.
Yeah.
And there's one thing that I wanted to make sure that you guys know about Ketu. Ketu as a planet, the element is fire. But Ketu as a Devta or as a god of animal is Prithvi Tattva. Okay. And there is one more thing that I want you to make sure that don't do any Rishi mantras before asking. There are certain restrictions when you're doing a Rishi mantra. Okay. And don't do Mahamatsya mantra and Vaman mantra like that. Okay. You can do all the other avatar mantras, but be very careful when you're doing the Vavana avatar and the Mahamatsya avatar. Okay. I will not recommend anybody to do a Vamana avatar mantra right now because Vamana is dissolving everything that you own. It is not to be done by you at this stage. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. So we are coming to an end. This is Mantra Shastra, the science of sound, where we will do the workshops, the sacred sound of Sanskrit, sometime in February. I think we have Akshat, do we have like 2 weeks or 3 weeks if anybody wants to join the course?
Yes, I think we'll give them a time actually to join.
Yeah,
And because we have covered, because this session was supposed to be 1 hour, and I think it went on for more than 2 hours.
yes, exactly. So
Okay, so
yeah.
they need to have some time to catch up, and because this is the course in which she will be teaching you, I will be monitoring you live. Okay, and we will be making sure that you guys actually have a certain kind of what we say, this thing, mentorship or mentorship while you guys are learning astrology. You guys are seeing charts, and we will be covering all of the basic concepts that is very essential to make a concrete foundation into Vedic astrology. Okay, and these concepts no doubt are going to help you build a much more deep knowledge later on over a period of years.
Yeah.
And what we are talking about, the 12 syllables, you will know that each and every letter that we pronounce is a mantra itself, and each and every letter has a very different energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Do we have a Panchang also? Do we going to teach Panchang also?
Yeah, Panchang also, here it is.
This is one of the foremost, this is the backbones of Vedic Jyotish, Panchanga. If you don't know the quality of time, you're not going to do anything.
Yeah. So we will have a good 5 hours, 6 hours dedicated to
yes, we will give you a complete introduction. What are the 5 limbs of time, how they are seen, how we can use them in order to remedy something.
Yeah.
Okay, but what does it mean, almanac, Indian almanac?
Almanac means, Panchanga means, Panch means 5 and Anga means limb. So we are actually dividing time into 5 limbs. We see that there are 5 Tara graphs and there are 5 tattvas. So each component or each part, limb of time is representing a certain element in your chart. What was the combination of these 5 limbs when you're born? And your whole life will be governed by the combination of these 5 limbs of time. Suppose the day you are born, suppose you're born on a Monday, then moon is going to govern what kind of wealth and what kind of health and energy you are going to have. Okay. And then this is Vara. Then you have something called Hora. What is your wealth? Then something it's called Nakshatra. How is your longevity? How good you're breathing? What is the air element inside you? How many breaths have he has written in your life? How many? There are certain number of breaths that everybody has been given, allotted, and that is the number of breaths is called prana.
So the
once
Tara
that number
grahas,
of breaths is complete, is complete, then you'll give. Yeah.
One sec, Akshat. So the Tara grahas, when Akshat says Tara graha, meaning, remember this slide we covered where on Tattva from the Brhat, Parāśara, Hora, Shastra. So 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. These 5 are called Tara grahas. Tara graha meaning that they literally, each of these elements are associated with it, and they are like stars in the sky which are visible to the naked eye. And Tara and Mars, and these 5 of them also create the great yogas, or the Hamsa Mahapurush yogas, Bhadra Purush Maha yogas, Ruchaka Mahapurush yogas, Sasa Mahapurush yogas, and so on and so forth. So these are absolutely essential, and they also give you the quality of time. So even before you have delved into your chart, you are able to look at these, and the Panchanga, the almanac, and give you this. It'll give you the flavor of what kind of time you were born in, what kind of quality of time you were born in, and so like Mangal stands for the fire energy. And so the fire energy is given by the day of the week you are born on. Similarly, Budh stands for the earth element. It's the work you do. Earth is like you earn during the day. You work during the day. That is Karana. That is part of the Panchang. And that has got the flavor of Shani and Buddha. So what kind of work you are going to do, and what's your karma like? Similarly, Shukra and Brihaspati, and so on and so forth. And the sun, moon, the luminaries, interplay between the luminaries has got the quality of Shukra. or the Jala Tattva, which is to do with relationships. So that is called the Tithi. So, you know, things like that, Panchang is a very fundamental, you know, Panchang will literally is like, you don't even have to look at the chart. I just have to look at the Panchang to figure out what is going to be the fate of the person. You don't even have
and
to
what's
look
wrong
into
with
the
the
chart.
person. Simple one look at the Panchang and you will be able to see what is wrong. Okay.
Yeah.
Remember one thing, Panchang means 5, and there are 5 Taragas. There are 9 planets in total. Okay. 2 are the luminaries, that is Sun and the Moon, and 2 are the nodes, that is Rahu and Ketu, and 5 are the Taragrahas. So what is happening? There are 2 between also all these 5 planets. The Taragas are caught between Sun, Moon, and Rahu and Ketu, because Rahu and Ketu are always retrograde, Sun and Moon are always direct. These 5 planets can go direct and retrograde. These are actually telling me the concept of life. Sometimes we are going ahead and sometimes we are coming back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
These are the things that you will learn. Yeah.
Is this course more for us to learn more about our Jyotish horoscope?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yes.
So you can learn, see, you can, it's this to learn about the horoscope. You can start learning about yours also, and you have to start learning to see others also.
I'm enough
When
confused
does
with
the
mine.
course start? When does the course start?
That
And the
Sonal,
cost?
she is going to be dealing with.
When does the course start? Well, when we will
Zoom
find
discussion at 1.
So we will
I'm
try
going
to
from
find,
one
we have to
Zoom to
find a
the
good
next.
Murata. We have to check the Panchanga and find a good Murata so that it starts on the auspicious day, first of all.
Yeah.
Okay. And regarding the cost, I think, and she can answer it because she will be the man who is managing the cost and everything.
Okay.
So yeah, like I said, it is 330 pounds, and yeah.
Okay, you said that. That's correct.
So
and so the time will be determined shortly.
Yes, the
Yeah.
time will be determined, but you do have 2 to 3 weeks before we start, before we group together. There is a dedicated Telegram group for all the queries and everything. There will be presentations sent or like, you know, put at a dedicated place along with the recordings. You know, you will have access to recordings for life. That is not a problem. And yeah, and there will be, you know, little bits and pieces of homework every week or so. And I'm endeavoring to have lessons every week, you know, at least an hour, or alternately, depending on what everybody who is enrolled will say, that alternately we will have it like 2.5 to 3 hours every fortnight. So depending on what people say, I'm happy with both. I don't, you know, it doesn't matter to me whether it is every week or a chunk of time, like a thing in every fortnight. So it all depends on what people are. And regarding timings, I realize that there people will have to juggle. We will have to accommodate, you know, depending on where you are, you know, but typically I think most likely we will have it maybe around weekends, like late afternoons or so that America is accommodated, and, you know, yeah,
India and everything.
India is accommodated, and UK and Europe, because I think that time works more or less for most people on the planet.
Yeah, I would like to join the course. I'd like to get more information. Would that come through the Telegram
Yes,
or
if you have any
email?
doubts, you just go ahead and ask right now.